that he gave them legal advice on the same issue and now would be leading evidence at this inquiry, right? And therefore that would just not make sense. And you're saying that may be a solid point, right? The other one, where the president having removed him in 2022, I think he used the word apprehension or something like that, almost suggesting that, in simple terms, it would imply Advocate Madonsela may bear a grudge. I mean, does that carry any weight? Because it's almost a damning statement as well, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I don't think it carries weight. It's really a really feeble attempt, I think, to say that there's a conflict of interest. As I said, Advocate Madonsela is a seasoned legal professional. He will execute a mandate as the evidence leader. As I say, assisting the committee. The committee is the one that makes the decisions. They will decide which witnesses to call. He's there because the members of the committee are not legal experts in terms of trawling through the evidence and bringing to the fore issues that are pertinent to the charges that the president might face once an impeachment inquiry gets underway.
I see Advocate Madonsela has been at pains to express just that I will not rule, I can't make judgment on anything, I can certainly only lead evidence. No. He found it quite surprising himself. But very importantly, what happens next now in this process? Because you've got the president of the country objecting, you've got the party, not a majority any longer, but certainly the party with the most votes, right, of all other parties in government, objecting as well. And of course, the president himself is the subject of the inquiry. So what happens next year?
Well, the impeachment committee that met yesterday, Ashraf, decided that they will take legal advice on the letter from the president. So they will await that legal advice, and I presume at their next meeting they will make a call as to whether Advocate Madonsela is in fact conflicted or not, and whether they will vote to retain him as the evidence leader. So that will be the next step. I think what is also concerning is the sort of implicit threat in the letter from the president that he has written this letter to forestall possible legal action further down the line. And that plays into the perception that the president is playing for time. That he's using legal mechanisms to try and delay this process.
And lastly, very quickly,
unfortunate.
And very quickly, I see many parties have said just that. He's playing for time, he's stalling us, he's trying to avoid the whole process anyway. Just a quick answer. I mean, do they have a point? You think that's true?
Well, I think they do have a point now. I think, previously I'd said that, the president was exercising his legal rights, for example, to seek the interdict and so on. But I think this takes it in a different direction. I think the accusation of stalling is now more, a much more of a real one.
Okay, and you may wonder, if that's the case, why would he want to stall? Like, seriously. Anyway, another conversation for another time. Lawson Naidu, appreciate your time as always here on the National Pulse. What it does mean is I leave it open to you. You're the Pulse community. I expect you to react. Is the president stalling? What about if not the legal position, what about the moral stance of the president, objecting on the basis, suggesting that there will be apprehension on behalf of Advocate Madonsela? So I really don't want the advocate to serve because he was removed a few years ago, he may act differently. I mean, does that make any sense in a constitutional democracy that South Africa is? This is the National Pulse.
Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAfm 90 years.
I'm Brigadier Mati, the national spokesperson of the SAPS. On behalf of the management of the SAPS, we extend our heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to one of the country's most respected public broadcasters. We are particularly grateful for the role the station continues to play in assisting the police to communicate with the people of our country. Thank you for helping us share police successes and the strides made in tracking and apprehending wanted suspects. We also appreciate your commitment to balanced journalism, recognizing our achievements as the SAPS. May SAfm continue to go from strength to strength as it celebrates this remarkable milestone.
90 years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans speaking to South Africa. For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained. The conversation. From the voices of yesterday.
This morning to me, well, it took 8 attempts, but the Big Easy finally did it. South Africa's Ernie Els finally recorded his first win.
And it's just a month and a half until the start of the World Summit in Johannesburg. Now, most people are aware of the summit's goals.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that she has really paid a very big price for taking up music. Because what happened is that she left her daughter, one and only daughter.
You're listening to SAfm 104 to 107, and it's time for our music documentary series, The Music Makers. What is it all about?
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAfm celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation's story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube and X at SAfm Radio.
Right, let's talk about the Madlanga Commission then. And as I talk, there's a lot of things happening, and I know people want to comment about the conversation regarding the president and other big issues that moves the national pulse. Eric Miyeni, by the way, co-hosting with me today. He'll join me from 4 o'clock. In fact, I can check him already talking to Keys, so they'll be chatting to each other for a few minutes, but he'll join me later. Now to the Madlanga Commission. Let's recap. The National Coloured Congress leader and the suspended MP Fadil Adams returned to the Madlanga Commission today after a day of testimony that exposed contradictions in his evidence and raised fresh questions about crime intelligence. Now, the Political Killings Task Team and the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption. So, returning to the stand, Adams denied that Brown Mokhotsi played any role in helping him open criminal cases against senior crime intelligence officials in Orlando. Now, Adams has maintained that the late General Andre Lincoln was his contact and advised him to lay the criminal charges. Lincoln died last year, meaning Adams, his account itself cannot independently be verified. So we picked out some key moments from today. Firstly, Fadil Adams saying he accepts that General Lincoln may have, well, misled him.
Lincoln, who was a retired general at the time, had so much knowledge about what was happening within crime intelligence that he was feeding you this information.
I would say yes.
Okay. And do you know where he got the information from?
Ma'am, if only yes. That man knew so much about SAPS, about the underworld. I mean, it was his job. He was the head of the AGU. There was literally nothing you could ask him that he couldn't answer you on in these terms. If you mentioned a policeman to Andre Lincoln, he'd tell you that's a good guy. Nope, don't bother with that one. He was in terms of SAPS, he was a walking encyclopedia. That's why when he told me the dockets have been intercepted and it shouldn't have happened, I believed him without questioning him.
You said something earlier that he introduced you to Mr. Mokhotsi on the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were at his place. And he introduced Mr. Mokhotsi as someone who is close to the minister. And as you were sitting there now, you said, now you know it was a lie, that Mr. Mokhotsi is a friend of the minister.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which means when General Lincoln told you that Mr. Mokhotsi is a friend of the minister, that was not correct. What General Lincoln told you was in fact not a fact.
I understand.
According to you.
Sorry. I understand that was wrong.
Okay.
And if I may, I do not think that General Lincoln lied. I think Brown Mokhotsi misrepresented
himself. No. Let's not go there.
Sorry.
General Lincoln is not here to tell us about that telephone conversation, and I don't want us to speculate about Mokhotsi. That's not the point of what I want to raise with you. Yesterday we went through the investigation diary, and it was shown to you that if you were told that your docket has been removed and is not being worked on, that is not correct, because on the very day that you laid your charge, there are notes that shows that someone was working on the docket, and I think you fairly accepted that. That's what that docket indicated. Here's my proposition to you for your comment, that therefore, when General Lincoln, and if he did, say to you, your docket has disappeared on that day already when you laid a charge, that could not have been correct. He was mistaken about it, because we saw from the diary, at best he was mistaken. Two, he was misinforming you, because on the face of the diary, we do see entries that indicate that on the very day, and the 31st, in fact, work was happening on that docket. On that docket, would you be prepared to accept that? He may have been mistaken. He's not here to explain himself.
Or three, you are not telling us the truth about him having told you this at all.
Where do I start?
Answer all of them.
I'm going to grudgingly accept that my friend may have been wrong. And
grudgingly accept that he may have been wrong. There's more. Evidence leader in this case, Advocate Lee Seegels Ngube, tells Fadil Adams that, well, he can't always rely on a dead man. Listen to this conversation.
3. In my quest for justice, I traveled to Gauteng and opened the following dockets as per Orlando SAPS, and you give the name, the numbers. 4. However, I have also been notified that the Gauteng Police Department has followed the same modus operandi as the Western Cape PC and is interfering in the investigative process. And let's pause there. Laid the charges the day before. At 8 o'clock the next morning, you know that Gauteng Police is adopting the same modus operandi. Based on what?
Again, the man with insight into these type of things.
No, Mr. Adams. You have the CAS numbers now. You cannot rely on a dead man every time.
Ma'am,
it's unacceptable.
I understand your frustration. Let me explain mine to you, if you will. Please, please, just give me 1 second. I will explain it to you. So, what we all know, all of us, is that the South African Police Service covers for each other. I've been told these dockets are about to disappear. I'm going to give you an example, and please write this down.
Before you give me those examples, this is the man that says to you, go to Orlando. So he must trust Orlando. He also arranges for somebody from Orlando because he doesn't want the same thing. If we believe you, which I highly doubt that anyone does, but if we believe you that the Cape Town dockets were intercepted, you have now covered every base to make sure the Joburg dockets don't get intercepted. But the very next day you say to the minister, the same thing has happened. How is that possible? Then it must be General Lincoln and Witness G that has intercepted those dockets.
General Lincoln is in Cape Town without legs. He can't intercept a docket.
And yet he knows that the dockets have been intercepted.
This is what this man has told me. Now, if you will allow me, I will explain to you. There's a case.
Let's get this first. Let's get this first. What time did you lay your charges in Orlando?
It was in the was it in the morning? I think it was late morning, Chief. I think it was late morning. I caught the early flight to Joburg.
Mr. Adams, you've again said Chief.
Commissioner, I apologize. It just slips out. Commissioner, Chairperson, sorry.
Well, there we are. We're always going to talk about the big chief nowadays, I can assure you of that, right? Okay, we'll have more. We'll certainly have reaction from you regarding the Madlanga Commission. I expect that. But also, in the earlier conversation we had as well, bring on the conversation. Let's hear what you have to say about it. Let's get the news headlines now, 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. On the news headlines, the ANC in the Victor Molosi region and Knysna in the Western Cape says it's outraged at the killing of its councillor, Aubrey Tengwa. The former mayor of Knysna and the party's former regional chairperson was shot dead in Concordia last night. Businessman and associate of suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, Stuart Shanek, has been arrested at the Madlanga Commission. His arrest follows an intimidation case opened against him by Sowetan journalist Herman Muloi, and a new batch of 70,000 doses of vaccines are being sent to DRC to help contain the Ebola outbreak. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This is SAfm Sports with Duming Khapele.
All day today, the speculation, the box against the All Blacks, who will be in the starting team. Now we have it.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Damian Dialendi is said to become the 10th Springbok in history to reach 100 test caps when South Africa faced the All Blacks in the opening match of the inaugural Castle Double Malt Rugby's greatest rivalry at Ellis Park on Saturday. Rassie Erasmus has named a strong side with only Eben Etzebeth and SAfm Mgomezulu retaining their starting places from last weekend's 17-10 win over Argentina. Now, Fanbag Mgomezulu partners Grant Williams at halfback, while Cheslin Colby, Kurtley Arendse and Damian Willems form the back three. Dialendi will line up alongside Jesse Kriel in the midfield, while Oxen Che returns from injury to join Malcolm Marx and Wilco Low in the front row. Etzebeth partners Ruan Norkia in the second row, with Paul de Villiers, captain Peter Steph du Toit and Jasper Visser completing the loose trio. Sia Kolisi is among those left out of the matchday squad, with Erasmus saying that although the veteran flanker trained very well, the coaching staff opted to select de Villiers for this weekend's clash. The Boks will be looking to start rugby's greatest rivalry on a winning note against an All Black side they know very well, and Erasmus says that the intense rivalry between the Springboks and the All Blacks can only benefit the sport.
I think games like this makes people want to watch rugby more, because who knows who's going to win on Saturday? Nobody can tell, and nobody knows who's definitely going to win. No problem with people supporting the All Blacks. You know, if we can't win them over with the way we play and the way we carry our team and we put our country first, if that's the reason, or they just like their style of play, or they really look back into the history of what New Zealand has meant for them or for their fathers and that one, who are we to tell them they can't? So we're all good.
Moving on to football, Banyana have been drawn alongside Chinese Taipei, Ecuador and Uzbekistan in the preliminary phase of the Intercontinental Women's World Cup playoffs. Banyana will need to finish first or second in the preliminary phase in order to advance to the final phase, and games will be played between the 24th of November and the 5th of December. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns defender Koliso Modao will be on the sidelines for 6 months after suffering a serious Achilles injury during the club's 2-0 victory over Marumo Gallants yesterday. Cardoso said that the injury was particularly unfortunate because it occurred without any challenge from any opposing player. Modao is set to go for surgery on Monday.
Total rupture of the Achilles tendon for Koliso Modao, and the period up to 6 months, no less, of stop. He will be surgered on the next Monday and start the recovery process from there. Unfortunately, these things happen in football. We don't control. We have to deal with the context, and we will do it in the best way. Important to also understand that we have on that position also one of the best right backs on the country, as Tapelo Morena was also an international player for Bafana Bafana, and we also have Zuko, that is also an international player for Bafana Bafana. So for the moment, is the trust.
Elsewhere, on form Chicago Fire attacker Buso Tejani says that former Barcelona and legendary Polish striker Robert Lewandowski has been highly influential in his game lately. Tejani has been in rich vein of form for his club, with 3 goals in his last 2 matches, playing with a left-wing position. After the 2026 FIFA World Cup in the US, Lewandowski, known for his scoring prowess at Bayern Munich and Barca, have reportedly been mentoring his Chicago Fire teammates, including Tejani, and has focused on his finishing and scoring in particular. In motorsport, four-time world champion Max Verstappen has signed a new contract at Red Bull until the end of 2030. The move should end speculation about the Dutchman's future at the end of the season after he had been linked with potential moves to Mercedes or McLaren. Verstappen was previously contracted to the end of 2028, but there were clauses in his contract that would have allowed him to leave at the end of the current Formula One season had he wanted to do so. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Thanks for that. And of course, the expectation now, and people are still looking for tickets for that big clash. I mean, look at the drama. Ellis Park, Cape Town, and then the FNB Stadium in successive weeks. Springboks versus All Blacks. Like, where are you going to be? In fact, here's a question to you. If you're not part of management, don't worry about those who are in management. If you're a supporter, a proper supporter, are you going to all three test matches? If not you, is anybody that you know going to all three test matches? I want to know.
What is a nation without its stories? Without its music? Without its artists? Without its streamers? This August, we honor the people who give South Africa its voice. The National Arts and Culture Awards 2026, 21 August, Sun City. Then join millions of South Africans for the SABC1 primetime broadcast on 22 August at 8 p.m. Because when we celebrate creativity, we celebrate South Africa.
Looking for exclusive content, live events, and special broadcasts like the Madlanga Commission? Then connect to the all-new SAfm Connect stream. The Madlanga Commission, live and uninterrupted from 9:30 Monday to Friday. SAfm Connect brings you more of the conversations that matter. Listen anytime, anywhere by visiting connect.safm.co.za or stream directly on SABC Plus at sabc-plus.com. SAfm Connect. More conversations, more access. There's much more coming.
SAfm. You all know that image, Hector Peterson being carried in, that other man's arms. And I'd like to say that I'm personally very grateful, to see such bravery, such courage in the face of danger.
From Algiers to the desert sands, culture lives. Rai music, Amazigh heritage, tradition and identity, standing tall. Algeria does not bend, it stands.
In every grain of sand, in every voice, there is resilience. Algeria, the giant of the Sahara.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAfm.
Right, Eric Miyeni will join me from 4 o'clock, from 4 to 6. Looking forward to reconnecting with him, and of course him with the audience as well. So, I mean, what's your Eric Miyeni story? Can you remember much about it? The Eric Miyeni story, meaning when you were listening to SAfm before he was a host. Are there other anecdotes? Are there moments that you can remember about him? If you can, and I'm sure you can, well, what about just sending us a WhatsApp? We'll bank it 0614 104 107. Later on, you can actually call him and speak to him live. Not quite now, but later on. Now, as we get to the last 10 days and plus of Women's Month, let's focus on this important issue. The Free State Department of Health celebrated the Matlakala Khadebe, that is the owner of Qualicon Construction, after the national recognition of the state-of-the-art Borwa Clinic in Tweespruit. It spotlighted the CIDB Empowerment and Recognition of Women in Construction Awards at the Houghton Hotel earlier this week. The project stands as a great example of excellence in women-led infrastructure delivery, as it was completed in time within its 17-month schedule. So we love to chat to champions and winners. Let's do that with Matlakala Khadebe, owner of then Qualicon Construction. Thanks for connecting. We like to speak to quality, I should say.
Hi, Asha. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This might be quite a momentous few days for you then.
It has indeed. It's been quite an overwhelming experience, but lots of celebrations and proud moments.
Let's go back in terms of when you were given this recognition a few days ago. Remind me what it was for, and when your name gets announced in your company, you think what?
It feels surreal for a moment because you even doubt that, did I just hear right? Is it my name? Is it my company name?
Yeah.
Then you look at the pictures and you reflect as well, on how much you worked so hard on this project, and to be getting this recognition. It really becomes very overwhelming, and it's a proud moment at the same time. It's a mixture of all those feelings and feeling proud to have achieved that, and knowing what a difference that project made for the community.
Well, let's talk about the project proper then. What were you asked to do, and what did you do?
We were tasked, it was a design and build turnkey project. So we were given a scope that the community of Tweespruit needs certain doctor's rooms, a dentist room, kiddies play area. This is what it needs to serve. These are the challenges that are being given there. So the implementing agency, which was Kucha Development Corporation, they led us to that. So we had 3 months then where we had to get a design team to design it to the way that, according to the standards of clinics that are under that the Free State Department approves. Our plans got approved. Then from then on, we got to start procuring and building the project. So we had 3 months to plan it, to design, to get our plans approved, and then 24 months to build.
Okay, and from what I can gather, it was all done, forget 24 months, even quicker than that, in time, ahead of schedule, effectively, and in budget, yeah?
In time. Yes, in time, in budget, with the best quality you ever get, because we are Qualicon Construction, we are quality.
Well, I mean, you're just making the point about quality. Tell me more about the insights of what did you do in terms of ensuring that you actually met the time deadline, met the budget deadline, met the quality deadline. Give us an insight into you and your team and what you did do, actually.
It's all about planning and teamwork, having the right team and sticking to the program. So we'll do weekly and bi-weekly program updates and see where we are. If there's any disruptions, maybe rain that disrupts us for days that we cannot do certain work. So it's all about teamwork and planning ahead, but also the client that we have, keeping up with the communication and where we are, and if there's any challenges, then we see how we can mitigate them, especially in a town like Bora where the electricity, we had to wait for Eskom to come and connect so that the clinics can have electricity, water connections and all of that. So it really took a lot of teamwork and from other stakeholders as well, like Department of Public Works and Eskom, to come in to make sure that when we finish our deadline, the clinic will be fully functional. They won't be, but this is not working. And that's all it took.
Well, I mean, tell me about that, because, I mean, ultimately all that you do must impact the community that you serve. In this case here, it would be this community in Tweespruit at the end of the day. How is this going to change their lives?
It's going to change their lives because they stay very far. Already there's transport problems in Tweespruit, that if somebody's very ill, they have to go to the nearest town, which can be Tabanchu or Botshabelo or Bloemfontein. And with the transport system going, or the poor transport system, and for public as well, for the community to get there, that is already going to be a problem. So this has now helped to mitigate for people to have clear, proper, although it's a primary health care, yes, access to health care, to get checked out before you get sent to a hospital if necessary, but it's going to change the community's lives for the better, and instead of making plans of going to that other town to get help.
How is this going to change the lives of Qualicon Construction and Matlakala Khade? Because, I mean, this recognition gives you airtime, as you've just seen now, right? The endorsement factor is immense.
It is immense, and I think it's a legacy for us as well. The people of Tweespruit also know that we have not left them behind. I mean, last month the school did reach out to us. We did do some community projects to give back. There was a school that reached out last month, and we partnered up with Isuzu from Motors in Bloemfontein. We went to donate schools and stuff, so we have not forgotten about them. We may have built a building, but the community, besides that, they got employment during the work. I mean, each brick, each time was laid by the people of Tweespruit in that area. They got job opportunities, but they still know that when there's other needs, important stuff, they can still reach out, and we see how we can help them.
Okay. All I can say to you and your team, keep on.
So our job there is not done. Our job there is not done. It's not just about building a building, but also building legacies and helping the community.
Well, I hope so. The job's not done. That it's only started, right? Let's end with this, right? We are speaking to you in the middle of Women's Month, and there's this huge emphasis on reflecting what happened in the past and the strength and leadership of the women of that historic Freedom March. But at the same time, it also reflects on a massive drive for women empowerment in our country. How do you think you can use, or how do you in fact use your platform to not just empower women, but to empower the entire narrative of empowering women?
I take in a lot of students. I work closely with the universities. I do take in students, females, that we give them skills training for them to be ready for when they get into the field. Because I know when I started at the age of 20 with just doing my internship, how it felt like to be the only female on site, one or two females in meetings. So there's still a lot of work that we need to do to get women into those rooms. So that is something that I'm very passionate about, that more girls need to come in, and we do take in girls. I have 3 girls at my company right now that are doing skills training, that there needs to be more and more of us in the boardrooms and more on site, because we are capable.
Well, long may that continue. Appreciate your time, and well done. Congratulations to yourself and to the entire team that makes up Qualicon Construction. So Matlakale Khadebe, you're very much a winner, and keep on winning. Thanks for your time.
In case you missed it,
can you respond to the allegation that he made against you, that you told him he would not be fired, but seemingly changed your mind?
Yeah, leadership is tough. You've got to make decisions based on the facts before you. And if you never ever prepare to change your mind, then you, by definition, are not going to be a very good leader forever.
Is that a concession that you did, in fact, then renege on your word?
So I had to make a tough decision based on what was happening in agriculture that I thought was best for the party and best for the country.
I'm going to take it as a yes.
I stand by that.
Gordon Hill-Lewis, the leader of the Democratic Alliance.
That was National Briefing This Morning with Kathy Mutlatlana. Before there was the SAfm You Know Today, there was the English service, there was Radio South Africa, Radio South Africa, and there was a country going through extraordinary change.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Raphael.
From the darkness of apartheid,
I have to inform honourable members,
through the states of emergency.
Earlier, it was reported an explosion had occurred at an ESCOM.
Through the release of Nelson Mandela.
Comrades and fellow South Africans, I greet you all.
Through the birth of a democratic South Africa.
As we know, elections do not create change, they create only the opportunity for change.
The conversations continued, and in 1995, a new SAfm emerged. A new country, a new voice, a new chapter. This August, SAfm looks back at the journey that brought us here. The voices, the moments, the people, the history. 90 years of conversation, a nation story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. Ashraf Garda on SAfm.
Well, let's continue the conversation, and this one is such an important issue, which is the impact of opinion polls in elections, worldwide, but certainly in South Africa, particularly so as we now count down to that 4th of November election. So how important are these polls? With me is Professor Becky Ngomazulu, the director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. Prof. Ngomazulu, thanks for joining us once again on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much for having me, my brother. Good afternoon to your team. Good afternoon to your listeners, and happy 90th birthday.
Oh, thank you. Very, very kind indeed. Appreciate you being with us. So let's ask this question then. Over the years, and I don't mean this election, but historically in South Africa and around the world, do opinion polls that garners a sentiment of what people think about parties and leadership in the build-up to an election, do they actually have the ability to sway a vote?
There is no straightforward answer, my brother. There are times or there are instances where election polls have the propensity to change people's thinking before the election. In other words, they do have the potential to sway them. But then there are instances also where polls are polls and it ends there. These are just estimations as to what is likely to happen. But come election day, people will still vote the way they would have voted, even if there were no polls in place. So I would say that it depends on each and every context at each and every given time, even in one country. There is no uniform answer to that.
So in that case, what then would be the purpose of a poll?
Polls are conducted for different reasons. There are organizations that conduct polls just for as a box-ticking exercise. They've taken it as their responsibility that before each and every election, they will conduct a poll just to check how people are thinking about the elections and what the issues are, without necessarily claiming to be predicting the results that indeed they will be like that. But there are also organizations that will religiously conduct these polls, and by and large, you find that the results, in fact, are not far off the mark. So which means that you become an expert in the game and you know what kinds of questions to ask, and you're also aware of the socio-economic situation and the political situation. On the basis of that, you then frame your questions so that you get the views of the public. Come election day, you find that the results are in fact as close as possible to what the polls said before the election.
So let's take the current scenario. I mean, have you been looking at polls right now in South Africa, and you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, indeed. Let me, because these are local government elections, so in all probability, we don't necessarily talk about provinces. Even though the municipalities we're talking about are geographically located in provinces. Let's take the ones that are controversial, in fact, or at least the ones that have drawn interest, the likes of Johannesburg, for instance. We know that Johannesburg is one of the cities or of the metros where there are many politicians want to have a stake in what happens in that government. And looking at the polls that were conducted during the first and the second quarter by the Social Research Foundation, they indicated that during the first quarter, the DA was taking the lead with 39%, while the ANC was coming second with 30%. Then come the second quarter, the DA moved up to 42% when the ANC went down to 18%. And looking at the political context, the socio-economic situation there, and the scenes of incumbency, because currently Tata Morero is representing the ANC in that metro. So then if you look at what is happening politically, then you might say that these polls may not be exact, but at least they do give you an idea as to where the election results are, as to how the election results are most likely going to be. Then, of course, other parties might then disturb the figures that are given to the DA and might, in fact, even further disturb the figures that are currently given to the ANC. So anything is possible.
But, as we mentioned from the outset, polls that may have an ability to sway opinions. So if I look at a political party and I said, they've got no chance, and I won't even never vote for them, and suddenly I see the polls say maybe they'll get 10%, or like, hey man, clearly people believe in them, and that may sway me. Now, I'm putting that down because then who then governs polls? Meaning, who decides that we need a poll? Who activates it? And are these polls regulated?
There are many organizations that conduct polls, even political parties, by the way. There is nothing stopping them from doing their own polls just to check how they stand on the build-up to the elections. And then they will even media houses also, there is nothing stopping them from doing that. But there will also be independent research companies that will conduct polls. Your Ipsos, they will continue doing that. The HSRC can continue doing that. So there are many organizations that will conduct polls. And there is nothing stopping anyone from doing it. The question is, it goes back to the question you asked earlier on. Why are these polls conducted? Then some will conduct polls just because they want to convince the electorate that they are there. They are some of the contenders. And then others will be conducting polls to basically decampaign other political parties and say, look at this party, it doesn't stand any chance. So voting for that party will be tantamount to throwing your vote into the ocean. So there are different reasons as to why polls are conducted, as I stated earlier on. Some are done professionally because it's part of the job that organizations do, but then others do them with ill intentions. In order to discredit other political parties.
And I mean, the next point is depending on the results of a poll, do I take it that if a poll reflects favorably on a party or the party leader, for example, then that party is going to milk that poll. They're going to use it and they're going to reflect that in their campaigns, aren't they?
Definitely they will, but will that translate into the election? Not always. In some instances, we'll find that the polls will tell us, the two of us, that you are leading the pack and I come second. And then you are going to use that in your campaigns. And then I may also use the percentage that I was given, which is lower than yours, and say, look at what people are saying. Is this what you believe in? And then voters will say no. And then, of course, you might gain momentum closer to the election. And the other thing, of course, is the distance between when the polls are conducted and the election day, because anything can still happen in between. You may find, for example, in the case that we cited with regards to Johannesburg, where we said the last poll for quarter two, the DA was 42 and the ANC was 18. You may find that things may have changed even right now as we speak. So which means that the polls are not necessarily going to be a true reflection of what is going to happen on the day.
Let's end with this. If they're not a true reflection, perhaps the question to ask then is, what percentage, if I look at, say, 20 of the most significant polls taken in this country since democracy, what percentage of those polls came closest to reflecting the reality versus polls that were way out?
In the main, I would say over 60% of the polls are close to the reality. And then the ones that are something like a 20 to 25%, those will be the ones that have done this for quite a long time. You'll see during elections, whether it's national and provincial or local government elections, there will be polls that will be posted, and then the IEC will in fact solicit some of those and say, okay, give us an idea as to what the polls are saying, without necessarily the IEC wanting to influence the results. But they just want to check how the situation looks like. Political parties can also individually or collectively approach those research organizations and ask them to conduct polls. So basically, those that are closest to what happens on the day are in the minority. The ones that are off the mark are in the majority, particularly because a lot of things happens between when the polls are conducted and when the elections take place.
Okay, there we are. To poll or not to poll. Now we know. Professor Becky Mkomezulu, Director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. Question to you, how seriously do you take polls? Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, ANC reacts to the killing of Councillor Tsengwa, and Congo set to receive 70,000 doses of Ebola vaccine. For SAfm News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. The ANC in the Victor Molosi region in Knysna in the Western Cape says it's outraged at the killing of its councillor Aubrey Tsengwa, the former mayor of Knysna and who was also the party's former regional chairperson, was shot dead in Concordia last night. Police say three other people were wounded. Police spokesperson Wesley Twig says the victims were on their way home when an unknown person approached them and opened fire. The ANC has called on law enforcement officers to swiftly investigate the incident and arrest those involved. A teenager from the Western Cape was arrested for alleged links to extremist online child exploitation networks has been referred to the Falkenberg Psychiatric Hospital for mental evaluation. The 16-year-old made his second court appearance at Malmesbury Magistrates Court today. The case has been postponed. The teenager was arrested on Monday during an international sting operation. Western Cape NPA spokesperson Eric Ndabazalila says the state has increased the charges against the accused from 11 to 15. Dabazalila says the accused will be kept at a place of safety until his court appearance next Thursday. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry has condemned the intimidation of journalists in attendance at the Commission's hearings. This after Stuart Sharnik, a businessman and an associate of suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibia, was arrested during today's proceedings. His arrest comes after an intimidation case was opened against him by Sowetan journalist Herman Moloi. Moloi told SABC News that Sharnik confronted him during the tea break at the Commission while he was recording a video and allegedly threatened him, prompting him to open a case of intimidation. The Commission spokesperson, Jeremy Michaels.
Any such incident is unacceptable to the Commission. We expect a particular conduct from anyone in attendance at the Commission, and we know that the media plays a very important role in conveying proceedings of this Commission to the South African public and many other parts of the world. So we expect that journalists will be respected in executing their duties. The media has a constitutional right to do so.
Security officers deployed at all City of Tshwane municipal buildings saying they have not been paid for over 4 months but continue to report for duty. They are picketing outside Tshwane House in the Pretoria CBD. The officers say their families are suffering. Lead of the protesting security officers, Inyevalution Dinisa, has threatened mass action and a complete shutdown of all Tshwane municipal sites if they are not paid what is due to them.
We are not leaving the city until they pay all the companies. We are planning a very big shutdown to the city. We are going to fight this with everything we have. We are going to try to fix the system that corrupt people. People get reducted. Instead of paying us, they fire us. 1,200 security officers are jobless right now.
A new batch of 70,000 doses of vaccines is being sent to the Democratic Republic of Congo to help contain the Ebola outbreak. There are currently more than 5,000 known cases of Ebola in what is the fastest spreading outbreak on record. The BBC's Thomas Mukwana has more details.
The 70,000 doses of the Ervebo vaccine, which was designed to fight the most common Zaire strain of Ebola. Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, say that the vaccine had shown some effectiveness in trials against the rare Budibujo strain, which is spreading in DR Congo. 20,000 doses being sent to the country are for clinical trials, with the rest for frontline workers. 2 separate vaccines specifically designed against the implicated strain are also entering human trials for the first time.
Recapping the top story, the ANC in the Victor Molosi region in Knysna in the Western Cape says it's outraged at the killing of its councillor Aubrey Tsengwa. I am Ondela Mbana for SAfm News. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Rassie accepts divided loyalties for All Blacks showdown. SA rowers head to Amsterdam World Championships with high hopes, and golf cruises into Cincinnati quarters. More details at 4:30.
SAfm.
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. We started Midrand with a breakdown on the M1 North around New Road. That's already pushing a queue back as far as Buccleuch interchange. The rest of the highway network's not too bad around Joburg today, and around Pretoria looking generally okay as well. The traffic lights on the R55 at Laudium are down. Laudium and also the R55 at Maundy. Attridgeville, so there is some queuing pressure both ways on that side of Pretoria. Now, the big one today has been this earlier truck collision between Hilton and Pietermaritzburg. The N3 going south had been closed because this tanker overturned and exploded. Quite dramatic scenes that we saw there earlier this afternoon. If you're on your way to Durban, there is the backlog clearing into this area. There is still a lane restriction as you come down from Hilton. The road has been reopened. The big backlog has sort of eased up, but there's still a lot of pressure, sort of Sadara, Merivale, Sadara, and then Hilton, Peter Brown. So if you're on your way to Durban, it stays heavy, although you can get through the area. Then there's a breakdown between Market Road and Ashburton, so that section of the N3, Durban bound, under a bit of pressure as well today. Cape Town, N1 out of town, Sable Road to Durban Road is slow. The M5 looking heavy, queues between the Coburg interchange and Racecourse Road in the Kenilworth area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAfm 104.3 FM in Rustenburg. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAfm. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I can think of many things that's driving the pulse of the nation today, from the Madlanga Commission to the further responses regarding President Ramaphosa objecting to Advocate Madonsela serving as evidence leader at the impeachment committee, and many, many other issues, including that conversation about polling. And I think it is so significant. Just, what role do these polls take on during an election period? And are they able to sway? And if they're not able to sway, is it simply reporting the stories? I believe they are then milked by political parties when they come across very favorably, and then avoided by political parties when they're not. Well, I'll tell you what, talking about moving the pulse or getting the pulse rate racing, you're certainly going to get that next, because we're going to chat to, when I say going to chat, I'm wrong. Eric Miyeni is going to actually co-host with me. SAfm listeners, you would know, he presented one show, two shows, and never kept his mouth shut. I'm sure about that. We'll talk about it next.
Young people have always had the power to shape society. For my generation, it's not only about remembering the students of 1976, but also about recognizing that young voices matter and can drive change.
Angola faced a long civil war that lasted decades. A nation divided, people tested. But today, the story has changed. Peace rebuilt, cities rising, a future reclaimed.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAfm 90 years.
This is Paxton Khetsi, Acting National Chairperson of COPE. On behalf of the COPE Congress of the People, we congratulate SAfm on celebrating 90 years of broadcasting. For 9 decades, SAfm has informed, educated, and connected South Africans while serving as an important platform for public debate and democratic accountability. As our country continues to face complex challenges, we encourage SAfm to remain steadfast in its commitment to editorial independence, ethical journalism, and giving voice to all South Africans. A strong public broadcaster strengthens a strong democracy.
90 years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans speaking to South Africa. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Well, over a couple of years, I got invited to what is called the South African Film Festival, the Rapid Lion. And for some reason or the other, I never quite got there, Eric Miyeni. Whatever reason. But at least I've got you here now. So thanks for accepting our invitation for you to join us here on the show as we reflect SAfm at 90.
Yeah,
Welcome.
it's good to be behind the mic for a second. It's one of my favorite places, yeah.
Well, there you are. Well, listen, I mean, and when were you here? I mean, let's just recap.
I was here twice and fired twice. I think it might have been 2004, if I'm not mistaken, and then they brought me back another year. I don't remember the exact years right now, but I think I did 1 or 2 stints here.
Okay.
And I remember that if it had been America, I probably would be a millionaire, because I always raised the numbers. I always got sponsors into the shows that had nothing, that were dead. But somewhat, given that we are more of a Western country than African one, which means we are fully without freedom of speech, you're not allowed to have an independent mind. So I don't think the powers that be liked the kind of things I was trying to share with the South Africans, so they booted me out. But it's good to come here and celebrate 90 years of this place started in 1936. That's crazy. All the way from neo-colonialism, past apartheid, to oligarch-run South Africa.
And, I mean, and to be clear, I mean, SAfm is not 90 years old, you know, in the sense that it's 1995 onwards. Of course, it had different iterations, right? You know, English radio service, whatever it was. And then
right.
that all evolved into what we now know as SAfm.
I guess a name change doesn't necessarily change the institution. So.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were here, and you said you came, you joined once, twice, and got fired both times on. Thanks for accepting the invitation. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
I did say off air and on air that I don't ever think you're one who holds back on opinions. What have you been doing? I mean, so if you came and left around the mid-2000s, I mentioned Rapid Line. Where are you?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing because SAfm was not necessarily a career. It's just something that happened alongside everything that I was doing. So I've been writing, of course. That's what I've been doing. I ran the South African International Film Festival, which is called Rapid Line, for quite a while. And you could say I'm, at the moment, semi-retired, if that's what you could call it.
That's a privilege.
It depends, If you have a president with an economy, running an economy against your people, you're kind of forced to retire.
Is that what you think?
Of course, that's what I think.
Tell me why you say that.
Look, it is not a hidden fact that under President Zuma, African people, colored people, Indian people were doing very well economically in this country. And since this president took over, it has gone not just in reverse, but it's almost like the economy is hostile to people who are not white. People are suffering right now, and it's worse than it's ever been before. And I can't put it anywhere except at the door of the ANC and their president.
But I mean, the same ANC was the ANC of Jacob Zuma as well.
Well, because you can't underestimate what the head of an organization can do to influence it. Now, if you have a president that in his earliest stage of being a president fires somebody like Minister Sisulu, you can imagine what he's saying to everybody else in that cabinet. If I can fire a dynastic, somebody who comes from such a family, who are you to even go against me? So what you then end up is people with, if they leave parliament, where are they going to go? It's not like they're engineers like in China. So obviously he's going to end up with people just agreeing with him on everything because no one wants to be fired. They're not going to eat if they get fired.
All right. I have lots to talk to you about our country, Eric Miyeni, but I'm also going to invite people to call in 086 000 2032 and then to WhatsApp. It's 0614 104 107. Text or voice note. I mean, what's your favorite Eric Miyeni story? Well, I don't know if listeners can remember that. You never know.
Interesting.
How much do you remember of Eric Miyeni being on SAfm and expressing himself and interviewing people and stirring the pot as he's doing even now? And I wouldn't be surprised at all about that as well. What do you remember about SAfm? Besides being fired, I mean, you've been
No. I mean, if I can tell you something, there is no place. There are two places I felt incredibly comfortable in my life in terms of career. It's been behind the microphone talking to South Africans at SAfm. That was an incredible opportunity. And I think, unlike most people think I'm stirring the pot, but I've never been one to stir the pot at all. I've never been one to be controversial at all. But I've never been one to lie or to not tell the truth as I see it. I'm willing to be challenged on my truths, to be given nothing, and that's what a proper democracy should do. But a non-democracy like ours, it's a pretend democracy. In fact, my view is that most Western democracies are pretend democracies. Oligarchs run this place. Your president doesn't run it. Your views come second to the views of the richest people in this country. That's the same thing in America. It's the same thing in England. It's the same thing in France. It's not the same thing in China. In China, a billionaire is told to sit the hell down. You don't interfere with what we want to do for our children. You don't interfere with what we want to do with schooling. You will go to jail. Get your $1 billion, get your $1 million, and sit the hell down.
So
but in Western democracy...
Pretend democracy, and you've used that word 3 times, versus, can I then say China is what? An autocracy? What is it?
My view of a proper democracy is where the needs of the people are correctly met, where the actual leaders are serious, not in words, but in what they do for their people. You don't lift 800 million people out of poverty by not listening to the people. In China, I was there. They can mobilize the entire country within seconds. So if you're in a small village where there's no cell phone, and there's none right now, or television, they have a speaker in the village where they can tell you there's a tsunami coming. That's how much they care for their people. The harshest law in China, where you can be in jail for longer than, I think it's 3 months or something like this, with no trial, with no nothing, is if you are a member of the CCP and you took a bribe or gave a bribe. You go in like an apartheid, an apartheid fighter, but you are a member. Imagine that the harshest law in South Africa was one that's meted against an ANC member who did something wrong.
All right, just pause on that. We'll talk more pretend democracy just now with Eric Miyeni. I think that there's a caller, and I want to take that call right away. Yeah, let's go for it. Hi. Welcome to the National Pulse. Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you, Mr. Ashraf?
I'm good indeed. I'm sure you want to speak to Eric, man, but go ahead anyway.
Yes, for sure. How are you, Brother Eric?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I have been listening to the SAfm even during your stint, your first one. I think it was around 2004.
Yeah.
And I cannot forget how you pronounce Baghdad. You used to call it Baghdad.
Yeah,
and then... yes. People, they think you are a controversial kind of a presenter. But you have just mentioned something right now with Ashraf there. You have got these thought-provoking views or opinions. I'm an ANC member myself. And I do concur with yourself that since President Ramaphosa came in, the poverty among the people on the ground, it has sort of escalated because he is a pro-business kind of a person. So I do agree with you, and then we appreciate SAfm for inviting you back there. I know that some people will regard you to be a controversial person, but for me, you are a thought-provoking kind of a presenter. So we are listening, we are following there. We appreciate your return, even though it's for a brief moment, my brother.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
there we are. Yeah. Lovely. Nice call indeed, Lowood. As always, regular caller here on the show. Right. We're going to get to you, because you're going to now do the next interview, right?
Right, apparently.
Like you literally...
No, is it the next interview?
Well, it's coming up. It's coming up just now. So just pause, and we'll do that right after this.
The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay.
Some songs take you back instantly to your first love, a road trip, or just simpler times. The soundtrack of your life with me, Ernest Pillay, is where timeless hits and forgotten favorites come together to tell your story.
No, my first thing is that
regular in contact with people.
Oh, nice.
It's not just music. It's memories, moments, and the meaning behind this jam.
15, 17, 20. The rest of them look at 62. Wow. Yeah. Holy God, I'm not 62. So that's one about 9.
Rediscover the songs that shaped your journey. tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m., only on SAfm 104 to 107 nationwide.
I'll just introduce you and you take over.
For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained. The conversation. From the voices of yesterday.
The situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not improving.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunday edition of the JSB House. I'm Michelle Constant.
If a union treasurer is popular, then there must be something wrong with the finances. You are extremely popular this morning, Minister Manuel. Is there something wrong with our finances?
It's a very good evening, or rather afternoon to you, Mzansi. Welcome to Otherwise on SAfm, South Africa's news and information leader. My name is Shadow Twala.
So, you know how important social grants are, right? And it turns out that there's a big study that's been done. The University of Johannesburg's been looking at it.
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAfm celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. You're listening to the National Pulse.
The National Pulse indeed, but today it's National Pulse, Ashraf Garda and Eric Miyeni. Eric, you were saying earlier on that you hardly listen to radio, but today you're going to do one better. You're actually going to do a radio interview after a long time. So there's a story about Knysna and the mayor there. You better take over.
Yeah, former Knysna mayor and ANC councillor Dr. Aubrey Tsengwa was shot dead on Wednesday. Our condolences go to his family and his loved ones. It can't be an easy thing to happen. Let's find out a bit more on the story with Sagri Chetty, our SABC reporter. Welcome to the show, Sagri.
To the listeners and to you, Ashraf and Eric.
Could you just tell us more about what you know around this assassination, if that's what it was?
Well, according to police, Eric, the deceased was driving home just after 9 p.m. Last night. He's said to have been approached by a gunman who shot him. So Tsengwa was the driver of the vehicle. We hear that he had 3 other people in the car with him. One, I believe, was wounded and hospitalized. So authorities have not confirmed the identities of his passengers. The suspect is said to have fled the scene.
So I take it if the other 2 survived, it was quite targeted. Is that what they're thinking?
Pardon? Can you just
I'm
repeat
saying
the question?
Because the other 2 in the car were left alone, so to speak, is the conclusion that it was quite a targeted assassination?
Well, we cannot say that right now. The police are not really giving more details on this. And like you said, we can't really call it an assassination right now until they conclude the investigations. But let me tell you a little bit more about Councillor Tsengwa. He was a councillor in Ward 8. He was also the Knysna mayor from August 2022 until he was removed from office, from his post rather, in February last year. And this was following a motion of no confidence. So this was due to alleged improper staffing appointments and also local government challenges, such as service delivery. Now, we do know that Knysna has, over the past few years, had quite a lot of service delivery issues. But what you know by now is that he was an ANC member and also served as a member of the regional executive. But before he started his political career, he was also a traffic official at the municipality.
Isn't it kind of odd that this happens to him after he's left office? You would think that in a political climate that's funny, somebody who's outside office would be creating havoc. I mean, what's the latest that the police can share around what happened here? Do they really think it's a random murder? Or
I think, Eric, right now the police, the authorities are remaining quite tight-lipped. That's how it goes with these so-called political killings. And as you know, we are close to an election right now, so it's quite sensitive. So I think for the people of Knysna, they really are in shock right now. In 2018, another ANC ward councillor of the same ward, Ward 8, his name was Victor Molosi, and he was gunned down outside his home in the same area. So people automatically think of that tragedy when they hear of Aubrey Tsengwa, the fact that they both were killed so violently. Both of them were ANC members, both of them ward councillors, in Ward 8. And it was actually another Knysna ward councillor, Belile Wapa, at that time, that was sentenced for Victor Molosi's murder alongside two other accomplices. They all received life sentences in 2019. But in 2024, Wapa's conviction was overturned by the Constitutional Court, and he's actually a free man right now.
Now we'll have to leave it there, Sagri. It's time for headline news. Thank you so much for joining us on SAfm.
Perfect, thank you. Just thanks for that, Sagri. Your thoughts on look, I mean, the point is this thing, the assumption may be that it's an assassination, or it could be a typical crime in our crime-ridden country. Anyway, what do you make of, political assassinations or intolerance in our country? I mean, you sense that happening, and increasingly so?
Well, it boils down to the same ill discipline that we have. We can go on and on forever, but chaos creates distraction, which fuels the looting by oligarchs in a Western democracy. There's always going to be something going on, whether it's a Madlanga commission, an assassination. There's always something that will distract you from understanding.
Is Madlanga a distraction?
Well, pretty much. Not that what it has no substance, but the bottom line is the bigger issue in this country is that over 42% of our people are unemployed, over 70% of our children who studied are not having jobs. But while you're busy with the fact that you as a black person are corrupt, you're not going to look at that. The point is over 90% of our wealth is in the same hands that had that wealth under apartheid, had it under colonialism. None of it has changed. So you can go on in Madlanga and all of this, but you can go on with
would you then say, don't have the Madlanga commission, don't have any commission? Just
it's not an extreme this or extreme that. By and large, when the real issues are not being addressed, while you are busy being fed images of your own people being corrupt, right now, the Tonga people stole over 3 billion rand. They are not even in the news, but VBS was in the news every day. Why?
Why do you?
Well, exactly what I'm saying. As long as you are busy believing that your people are corrupt and messed up, and as long as you're thinking the foreigners are a problem, you leave your minds, you leave the banks, you leave the money, you leave everything that matters, and you'll fight amongst each other. It's just a distraction.
So we're almost on to news. If I ask you by decree, right, since the democracy is the charade, as you may have indicated, to change one thing in the country in terms of how we govern our country, what would you do?
I would really look very closely at China as a properly functioning country. I think when President Zuma was in power, he was sending a lot of our SOE people there to look and to learn. None of that is happening right now. I think every country that is serious about becoming anything should decouple from the West and look at China and learn.
Are you a fan of Zuma? Sounds like
Yes, I am.
We'll find out why in a moment or so, not quite now. By the way, you can comment as well. One, of course, we're talking to Eric Miyeni, not just about Eric Miyeni himself, but being a former presenter on SAfm. So if you have those Eric Miyeni memories, share them with us. You can call in live. You can send us WhatsApp comments. You can also text as well and post them on social media. We'll pick up all of those things. But right now, first things first, 4:30 news headlines.
the news headlines, a third suspect has been arrested in connection to the murders of 2 women and 2 police officers in Recha Park, east of Johannesburg, earlier this month. At the ANC in the Victor Molosi region and Knysna in the Western Cape says it's outraged at the killing of its councillor, Aubrey Tengwa. And the Maritime Security reports say a tanker travelling off the coast of Yemen has been seized by 6 armed men who have diverted it towards Somalia. A full update follows at the top of the hour with the Greg Gross.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Some breaking news in the last few minutes. The N3 Durban bound has been closed again between Hilton and Town Hill. Now, that's to recover the earlier tanker fire. The road had been closed since just before 12 lunchtime this afternoon for a little while, well, for quite a while. And then it reopened, cleared some of the backlog, but it's just been closed again to do the final recovery of this tanker that crashed and caught fire and exploded. Quite dramatic scene. So, net result, very heavy backlogs coming from Howick, from Merivale down through Sadara and then down, stacking up into the closure point at Hilton. Hilton Avenue, the R103, the old Howick Road, all very slow. As you can imagine, all that traffic coming off the N3 and diverting. Looks like trucks are being stacked up. If you're a trucker, it's a long, long queue going down towards that Hilton exit. Once you pop out the other side, there is a breakdown still with us around Ashburton, so some more delays on the Durban-bound carriageway. The N2 going north up into Spaghetti Junction, that's busy this afternoon as well. Joburg, volume's definitely a little bit lighter. So you're having a decent run, with the exception of the N1 through northern parts of Joburg and Midrand. There's a breakdown at New Road going north, so that's heavy from Buccleuch, and a breakdown going south at Rivonia. And that queue starts at around sort of Allendale Road on the M1 south into Buccleuch and then down through that Sunny Hill area. N17 eastbound under pressure down to Rondebolt Road. That's with the roadworks, just a single lane section on your way to Brakpan Springs and Boksburg today. Cape Town N2 out of town, passing the airport to R300 is jammed up, and there's a bit of pressure coming out of town on the N1 as far as Kuberg. Interchange. Also, if you're driving inbound to Cape Town through Somerset West, the breakdown at Fabrique Street causing some delays coming inbound from the Gordons Bay side. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Well, let's start things off with.
Yeah, to me, I was saying we know it's this world's greatest rivalry season, but there's an interesting side issue to it, if I can call it that, of South Africans coming out in numbers to support the All Blacks, and the coach has a view on that.
Absolutely. I actually have family members who go to the stadium to go support the All Blacks, and I'm like, what about the Springboks? They're like, listen, it's our thing. But Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus says that he has no issue with South Africans who continue to throw their support behind the All Blacks ahead of Saturday's highly anticipated rugby's greatest rivalry opener. The divided loyalties have historical roots, particularly in the apartheid era when some South Africans identified with the All Blacks because New Zealand's teams were seen as more representative of a multiracial society. Now, while transformation in South African rugby has changed the landscape, some supporters have retained their alliance to New Zealand.
They've got massive support, but it's been like that since I grew up, since my first test match against them, my last test match against them, it's been in South Africa. So on the other side, we didn't have as much support in South Africa a few years back, and I think we've grown from 5-6 million to 16 million avid supporters, so we've also grown.
Moving on to football, over the past months, there's been speculations over what could be happening with Monapule Seleng at Mamelodi Sundowns, while now head coach Miguel Cardoso has provided more clarity on the situation, saying that the matter is no longer a coaching issue, but one that rests with the club's management. Seleng has been training away from the senior team following a number of disciplinary issues, and Cardoso says that the technical team made several attempts to reintegrating the winger into the squad, but those efforts did not yield the desired outcome.
Regarding Seleng, the situation is unfortunately very different. Seleng consecutively broke the rules and the values of the locker room and of the club. And in this moment, he's not not in this moment. For some time already, he's not training with the team. Just for you to understand, Seleng was on the list for the second match of the Champions League and he didn't appear. Saleh was on the list to go on camp. He didn't appear, or he said he would not go. So it's impossible for us to keep stability with a player that we gave so much love, even after systematic mistakes, but that is not willing to make the path that a team in this level has to have. So the club decided to put himself.
Well, with Sundowns preparing for their MTN 8 semi-final against Golden Arrows, Cardoso says that Saleng's future is now in the hands of the club and that the issue is no longer his focus as a coach. Elsewhere, a worldwide group of football supporters have launched a petition calling for FIFA President Gianni Infantino to resign and for a major change to be made at FIFA. The petition, launched on change.org, has support from football fan organizations across Africa, Europe, North America, and other parts of the world, including England's Football Supporters Association. Now, the supporters accuse Infantino of damaging trust in FIFA. They point to several issues, including plans to sell World Cup stakes to private investors, his past involvement in the European Super League debate, the proposal to hold the World Cup every 2 years, and concerns over ticket prices and policies for the 2026 World Cup. The campaign is calling for greater transparency at FIFA, more consultation with supporters, stronger checks on the power of FIFA executives, and more money to be invested back in football. In tennis, fourth seed, Coco Gauff powered past Czech Maria Bouzkova 6-3, 6-2 in just 1 hour and 33 minutes to reach the quarterfinals of the Cincinnati Open. The American star, fresh off her strong summer form, will next face Marta Kostek of Ukraine for a place in the semi-finals. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Thanks for that, Tumi. Right. Well, there you are. I did put that question to you. Anybody you know going to attend all 3 matches of the Springboks against the All Blacks? 3 test matches in successive weeks. Who's that person? Besides management, tell me.
Every generation has a story. Every generation has questions. Every generation has a voice. For 90 years, SAfm has been part of the conversation. This August, we listen back to the voices that brought us here. We celebrate the people who shaped our journey, and we listen for the voices that will shape what comes next, including the launch of a new annual SAfm property. This Women's Month, we are in search of an SAfm woman. 4 extraordinary women, 4 extraordinary journeys. One question: what does it mean to be an SAfm woman? SAfm 90 years. Women, a new voice. 90 years of conversation. A nation story. Our shared future. From 1 August, SAfm. In case you missed it.
Another type of attack I want to ask about is digital sextortion. How does that tend to be carried out and against who?
You know, when we look at sextortion, criminals are exploiting something very human. They're exploiting fear and shame and reputational harm. And the criminal's objective isn't the image in itself, it's that emotional leverage they create to pressure someone into paying quickly. And, you know, like I said, AI has dramatically increased the scale and the sophistication of that type of attack.
That is Asare, AI and digital policy expert.
That was the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph. SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Economic news on SAfm. Facts and figures you can count on.
Before I get to that, let me remind you, you can We'll take your calls just now about Eric Miyeni. I mean, specifically about him. Compliments, criticism, whatever. What do you remember about him from those years at SAfm when he hosted the show? And you can pick your brain now, pick his brain, in fact. But let's get to the markets with Paswane Mpatlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. You want to start with Spur, Paswane?
Yes, afternoon, Ashraf and your listeners. They gave us the annual results. These are guys that own brands like Spur, Panarottis, Rokumama, Tokyo Zero, amongst others. Despite a challenging consumer environment, the guys continue to benefit from their loyal customer base that keeps growing, thanks to the great promotions they offer. Restaurant turnover was up 6.9%. The average spend from individuals rised. Group revenue is up 8.5% thanks to Spur, and Panarottis holding up well. Cash generated from the businesses around 488 million, as their lunchtime continues to be a great driver. Guys forget the stuff deals. When you're left there, reflect on their value proposition. Profits, yes, they dipped by 38%, but it's due to a provision that was raised regarding a litigation they face. Therefore, when you adjust it, it's up 9.9%. The guys are planning on opening 66 further restaurants, and while they paid a dividend of 9% at around 26 cents a share, stock was up 96%. When you come into the market, the U.S. government debt crossed 40 trillion for the first time, with service payments now continue to account for a significant portion of their budget. This is creating constraints around fiscal policy flexibility, and yields are reflecting this concern. They rebound, reversing some of the gains from yesterday as they fade away the buyback news from Treasury as they wait for the third position around this. They focused on the rising oil price that was just up 3% at $93 a barrel, and associated with falling volatility on the oil front. Markets are pricing in some improving demand in a tight supply market, as the U.S. blockade continues to further limit the oil flows further on. Trump has announced the economic sanctions that have to come on Iran, and those who will help Iran will also face some. Meanwhile, on the Fed minutes front, it's pointed to most voting members happy with the interest rates hold at these levels, and this continues to keep the dollar on a downtrend, muted today. Gold gave back some of yesterday's gains by just 0.5% at $4,495 an ounce. Platinum holds at $1,816 an ounce. Bitcoin turned a bullish chapter, up 3% at 71,500 for one Bitcoin, further supported by overnight news when Trump has pushed lawmakers to pass on clearer rules regarding crypto. When we come to the equities, they're under pressure. We see the U.S. markets opened with the Dow and S&P holding down, just down 0.7%, S&P down 0.3%. In Europe, the DAX and FTSE are down 0.5%. The JSE is pushing back yesterday's gains by just 0.6%. As financials were down 1.5%, industrials a percent, while investors continue to find comfort in our miners, with the resource sector up 0.6%. When we look at the currencies, the rand against the dollar is at 16.14 rand, rand against the euro 18.84 rand, and rand against the pound 21.99 rand.
Right, thanks for that, Paswane. You enjoy the rest of the day. Of course, we've got an hour of the markets coming up from 6 to 7 this evening. Jimmy Muyaha then will be in the hot seat. What we do have is the lines to open up for you to engage, specifically with Eric Miyeni, who's co-hosting the show with me today as part of SAfm at 90. And you may say, what? Well, because Eric hosted the show, 2 shows, in fact, here on SAfm around mid-2000s, thereabout-ish anyway. So we brought back these voices just for one day only. It sounds like an advert for one day only, but that's exactly what it is. Just one day only, not 2, right? In fact, let's now talk about, My City, My Concern, where we pick up your concerns and we try and help you sort it out.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAfm, let's talk. Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Unleash your inner chef with Spar. Get up to 80% off on NutriFresh kitchen essentials when you buy products like Cadbury 5-Star, Lunch Bar, PS, Astros, or Crunchy, 40 to 48.5 grams. Any 2 for 24. Save 8 Rand. Or 100-gram Danone Nutri-Day yogurt, 6-pack. Any 2 for 30. Save 10 Rand. Price is valid from 11 till 23 August. While stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
Drivers, that smoke ahead is not just smoke. It's a wall.
thick, blinding, and deadly. Never drive into felt fire smoke crossing the highway. You won't see stopped vehicles until it's too late. Pull over, turn on your hazards, wait it out. One decision can save lives, including yours. See and be seen this winter. Brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAfm. Leading the conversation.
Right, let's do this. We're going to get to some of the calls. We're going to play some of your WhatsApp comments, and then later on we'll get to that My City, My Concern feature. So let's get some of the WhatsApp comments now.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. Who says talking never solves anything? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Hello there, Ashraf in the studio, and I greet your guest, Eric. I think I understand why he was fired 2 times. The way he's speaking, he just spoke in favor of Jacob Zuma and spoke facts of what happened under Zuma leadership. All the clever blacks don't want to speak about that publicly because it puts Zuma in a positive light. You know, media has taught us in South Africa that when you speak about Zuma, you must speak negative and you mustn't say anything good. That's what media has taught most of the people in South Africa, forgetting that it's a fact that people lived very well during the leadership of Jacob Zuma. So I'm glad to hear him speaking like that, and I think I fully understand why he was fired. You hardly find journalists and radio presenters speaking positive about Jacob Zuma. If you speak positive about Jacob Zuma, it means you are against a certain faction and it must be dealt with. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon. You know what, Ashraf? People were talking about the state capture during the Zuma time. That was not a state capture. The real state capture is now. What we are hearing from Madlanga Commission, it shows us clearly that the real state capture is now. You know what? Fidel Adams should just be arrested. There's a lot of information that General Adams has got which can help this country. He should just be arrested. From the witness today, from his witnessing today, it shows that he's a liar and he's a crook. That man cannot be trusted. He should just be arrested. Thank you, Ashraf. It says, Rita here in Mutu, KwaZulu.
Thank you for that. Right.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Andile from Cape Town. President Ramaphosa is right to object if he's not comfortable about the person that is going to sit against his case, so-called case. He is correct. The law allows that. Currently, Ashraf, someone I know, is currently being charged by the CEO of the company. The very CEO has appointed the investigator. The very CEO has appointed the chairperson of the disciplinary committee, of the disciplinary hearing. The very CEO is going to make the final decision. You know, Ashraf, it is not fair. Ashraf, it can't be.
Okay, got that. Listen, Eric, I don't want to leave this one because it's such an important issue. I asked you at just before the news headlines, are you a fan of Jacob Zuma? And you said yes. Tell me why you're a fan.
Well, first of let me give one example of what has been known as Zuma. One of the things I liked about him. So I'll never forget the CEO of Tegeta at the time, which was the Gupta company that got the coal contract with Eskom, and they were being hounded across the board as being corrupt and all of that stuff. And I'll never forget, I was listening on 702, he was being grilled on 702, and he asked the presenter, the late Kolani Kwala at the time, and he said, do you know what percentage of the coal contract we have at Eskom? And Kolani said, I don't know. He said 1%. And he said, do you know how much we are saving Eskom with that 1%? Kolani said, I don't know. He said 1 billion rand per annum. And they said, sorry, we got to close the thing. They closed the thing. Now, I tweeted at the time that if you can save me 1 billion rand on 1% of the contract, I want to give you the 100% of the contract. Now, I went and checked that and said, how did they do it? The company before, I'll give you the name now, that our president was part of, Glencoe,
okay.
Glencoe, had gone to Eskom and said they can't sustain themselves on 560 per ton, 560 rand per ton, and they wanted to go up to 650 per ton. And Tegeta came and said, we can do this for 350 per ton. We are good enough to make our profit there. And they took over the contract.
Okay,
so I'm just saying, that's one story where the whole media tells you Gupta, Zuma, corruption. And here's the same, call it whatever, corruption troika, are saving the country R1 billion per annum.
Okay, but Zuma corrupt? Yes, no?
No.
Not at all?
As far as I'm concerned, every time, if he's corrupt, okay, they had 72 charges. How come none of them can stick? If you have 72 charges of corruption, how come not one court of law in this country? Because people in South Africa love the court of law when it serves them. Where is the charge that was proven in our court of law of Zuma's corruption? Because it's not up to me to tell you that so-and-so is corrupt or not. My court must do it. They had over 72 charges. None of them went
Maybe
anywhere.
it's a failing in our investigative authorities.
No. You can't say things like that.
No?
If somebody says you are a rapist, our court must prove that. If our court fails, I can't call you that. Otherwise, let's forget about the courts. Let's say courts are useless. We can use our kangaroo courts in our bedrooms and decide who's corrupt, who's not.
Let's pause there because I want to come back to the Zuma only because it's such an important issue. Okay,
Yes.
But there are other things we must talk about as well, including my city, my concern. We'll do next.
SAfm. Prime time all day long. Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAfm Radio.
Right, let's get to this feature we call My City, My Concern, where we get your views. In fact, not just your views, your big concerns, and we try and see if we can fix it in some way or the other. So we got a call yesterday from Kondo in the Eastern Cape. He had an issue that he wanted addressing regarding the Nkanga Clinic in the Libodo district under the Nyandeni local municipality in OR Tambo. Now, we reached out to the Eastern Cape Department of Health after speaking to him off air, and they responded. So we're going to get to their response just now, but let's get to the story so you as the audience understand it as well. Mkondo, thanks for joining us from Eastern Cape resident. You're now live on the National Pulse. Mkondo, hi. You there? No? Maybe not. Okay. Let's see if in the interim period we can maybe just play a couple of sound bites. There's lots of that. And then we'll get to the guest in the moment because I need to hear what he has to say. Let's play some voice notes.
Hello?
Yeah, is that Mkonde? Hello? Yeah?
Yes, Ashraf.
All right.
Mkonde from Eastern Cape.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you. I think we just struggled to connect with you first. But thank you for joining us. Now, you had some concerns which you chatted to my production team about yesterday. So what are your concerns?
Yes, Ashraf, I think there are two scenarios here regarding the healthcare issues here in Nyandeni. The first one, let's start with what happened to me. I am diabetic.
Yeah.
On the 8th of July, I went to the clinic, in Kanga Clinic, to take my medication. There was none in the clinic. And we made an arrangement that the following week I must come back again and take it. I went there on the 15th. When I arrived at the 15th, the clinic was closed. As a result, there was no water for almost a year in that clinic. No, the nurses decided to close the clinic. And I waited until the clinic was opened. What happened now yesterday? I went there again. There's still no medication, metformin. There are no metformin at clinic. And they tried. They said no. They will phone to the nearest clinic at Makotjana. They phoned and they said also at Makotjana there is none. That is my problem.
All right. So in all this time you've been asking them, they've not been able to give you any meds, not just yesterday, but even before that as well.
About a month since the 8th of July now, as you know, today they take no medication.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
No, I'm trying the traditional healer heads now because I'm trying. I mean, they are working because now if they are not working, I would be dead many long ago. I survive on traditional medicine.
I was going to ask you if you're not getting the meds. I mean, what are you doing? So you're using traditional medicine to sustain you, and that can sustain you?
Yes, because now I don't feel any. If something is bad now, I survive on that. That's what I'm saying. I believe in it because now I'm surviving.
What?
You know the worst part of it. The worst part of it. I wanted to test the sugar blood. There is not even a needle that they inject you so that they test the blood. There's none at the Ganga clinic.
Sure. And you know
that is the first scenario, Ashraf. The second one, on the 16th, because I went there to take medication on the 15th. Unfortunately, on the 16th, my wife gets sick. And I went there, and I found that, the clinic was closed, as I said. It was closed. I moved on to the hospital at St. Barnabas. When I arrived at St. Barnabas, we were told that, they don't accept any patient who is not referred there by their own clinic. But they say they are not going to chase me. They will take me, but I will be the last person to be assisted. On the queue, I will be the last because I was not referred there by the clinic. Okay, sure. That is their own policy.
It's very frustrating. I'll tell you what, I'm just worried about time. Let me do this. What we've done, Keys, my producer, has reached out to the Eastern Cape Health Department to get a response on your concerns, right? So we've got some sounds now from the spokesperson for the Eastern Cape Health Department. That's Kamawingi Mavovana, right? So let's do this. I'm going to play the sound and let's see if we can get another response from you right after this.
Okay.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Medication is currently available at the facility. There was a We have followed up with the Nkanga Clinic and can confirm that diabetes medication is currently available at the facility. There was a temporary delay in the supply of some medication, particularly metformin, 500 milligrams, and glibenclamide. Metformin stock was received towards the end of last month, and the facility has since secured glibenclamide. The interruption was linked to the transition to a new contract for the supply of tablets, which resulted in a slight delay in the delivery of some items. However, the facility has confirmed that the required diabetes medication is now available. We have also obtained the gentleman's contact details and will contact him directly to establish exactly what medication he requires and ensures that he is assisted.
Mkonde, you heard that. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard some of the, because the line is not clear, but I heard some of the issues. The speaker is saying, there's a viability of metformin 500. Is he not saying that?
Okay, let me tell you quickly. What they're saying is they had a temporary shortage. They're now okay. They've got all the type of medicines that you require, and they're going to contact you directly shortly. They've got your number. They're going to contact you, and I'll make sure that from Keys' side, my producer, that between the three of you, something will happen. We must try and solve this problem. Okay? Mkonde?
But I don't trust them, sir, because I was there yesterday.
You wouldn't be the only person who doesn't trust them, but fine. We're going to.
What do they mean?
All right. We're going to. No, let's connect with you. We'll see if we can make sure this absolutely
But
happens.
Mkonde, if the traditional medicine is working, maybe you can save yourself some trips.
Well, he's doing that already anyway, yeah. Mkonde, thanks for that. I'll connect you once again with Keys, and let's see how we can make sure that if you don't trust them, they'll still deliver anyway. Right now, it's the news at 5.
Thank you, Ashraf. Another arrest over Reko Park shootings and tanker seized off Yemen's coast. Good day to you. The third suspect's been arrested in connection with the murders of 2 women and 2 police officers in Reko Park, east of Johannesburg, earlier this month. The 27-year-old suspect is expected to appear in the Boksburg Magistrates Court tomorrow. The suspect faces charges similar to those of his co-accused, including 2 counts of murder as well as possession of unlicensed firearms. Hawk spokesperson Katleko Mukhale.
Through an intelligence-driven operation and meticulous investigation, the team traced the suspect to Ekurhuleni, where he was arrested in connection with the brutal killing of 2 police officers and 2 women in Reko Park on the 7th of August 2026. The latest arrest brings to 3 the number of suspects who have been identified and charged in connection with the killings. The 27-year-old suspect faces charges similar to those of his co-accused, one of whom is reportedly a relative.
The ANC in the Victor Molosi region in Knysna in the Western Cape says it's outraged at the killing of its councillor, Aubrey Sengwa. The former mayor of Knysna, who was also the party's former regional chairperson, was shot and killed in Concordia last night. Police say 3 other people were wounded. The police say the victims were on their way home when an unknown person approached them and opened fire. President Cyril Ramaphosa says Phase 3 of the government business partnership will focus on advancing economic growth to reach 3%, while aiming to create 1 million jobs by 2030. Addressing delegates in Sandton, north of Johannesburg, he underscored the success of the collaboration, which has resulted in the elimination of load shedding, the improvement of the logistics system, and the country's removal from the Financial Action Task Force's grey list, among others.
The central focus of our Phase 3 must be inclusive growth, jobs and confidence. Our immediate objective is to lift economic growth above 3%. That should be our focus. But growth of 3% cannot be the summit of our ambition. It is a necessary threshold from which we must advance towards higher, sustained and more inclusive growth. The composition of growth matters as much as its rate. We need growth that is labor intensive, as we've heard. We need growth that expands our industrial capacity.
The Northwest Agriculture Department says it's made significant progress in controlling foot and mouth disease in the province. It says more than 1 million animals have been vaccinated since March this year, reaching over 80% of its target. Department spokesperson Emelda Sitlahu.
With more than 1.3 animals vaccinated since the launch of the mass vaccination campaign in March this year. While welcoming the progress made, MEC Madoda Sambata has cautioned farmers against becoming complacent and urged livestock owners to continue working closely with veterinary teams on the ground. He urged all livestock farmers to continue cooperating with veterinary officials on the ground and to comply with the disease control and biosecurity measures that are in place.
Further afield now, maritime security reports say a tanker travelling off the coast of Yemen has been seized by armed men who've diverted it towards Somalia. The BBC's Barbara Plett-Usher has more.
The UK Maritime Security Agency says the tanker was boarded by 6 armed people about 136 nautical miles east of Yemen, which is on one side of the Gulf of Aden, and it is heading to Somalia, which is on the other. It's not yet clear who hijacked the ship, but this is the latest incident since a resurgence of Somali piracy in April. Reports say this is fueled by local anger over illegal foreign fishing trawlers. But some defense analysts suspect that Yemen's Houthi rebels may be coordinating with the pirates to disrupt shipping in the Red Sea. Iran has threatened to do so in response to the U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
The top story, a third suspect's been arrested in connection with the murders of 2 women and 2 police officers in Reko Park, east of Johannesburg, earlier this month. That's SAfm News. I'm Greg Kos.
In sports this hour, Kolisi to miss All Blacks opener. Banyana learn World Cup playoff opponents, and Verstappen extends Red Bull deal to 2030. More details at 5:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Our top story is the run from Howick down into Pietermaritzburg. The N3 is being closed again. There was a massive tanker crash and tanker explosion earlier today. Very, very dramatic. The road was closed from sort of very late morning right through the afternoon. It had reopened for a while, got a bit of the backlog through, but then they're now doing the final bits and pieces of crash recovery. So the N3 closed again at Hilton, all the way down through to Town Hill. Massive delay coming in from really Howick. Sort of you come through Howick, you get to Maryvale, and then everything just grinds to a halt in a massive backlog of traffic down through Sadara and down to Hilton. Of course, trucks are backed and stacked 4 kilometres on that N3 Durban bound, and everybody else getting caught up in it. You'll come off at Sadara, go down the old road, or come off at Hilton, go down the old road, and obviously a lot of pressure there going into Pietermaritzburg as well. Just staying in KZN, a look at Durban traffic today. The N2 North still queuing into Spaghetti Junction. A crash on the M4 at Virginia Airport, southbound from Mhlanga, northbound from Blue Lagoon. Under pressure into that one. And some breakdowns around the N1 highway, Midrand and Joburg today. Stationary vehicle up at New Road. So Mike 1, Santon through Buccleuch onto the N1. That stays slow. There's also been a crash in amongst that queue around Allendale Road, heading north as well. So it's all fairly busy coming out of Santon as you're trying to get through Midrand today. And then a breakdown at Rivonia Road has just been cleared, but that's left a backlog coming through Buccleuch down towards the Fourways area. N3, Limborough Park to Germiston, pretty heavy, but fairly normal. And the R59 going south is heavy, queues down towards Swartkoppes Road today. Cape Town, N1 out of town, queuing up to Kuburg Interchange. The N2 out of town slow, passing the airport to R300. And if you're in Rondebosch wondering what all the fuss is about, traffic lights out, Belmont and Campground. Big impact there, back on the main road from Mowbray through Rosebank into Rondebosch, very heavy. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAfm 104.6 FM in Kimberley.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAfm. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, special show today because we've got Eric Miyeni co-hosting with me as part of SAfm at 90, the birthday celebrations. We got all the voices of some of the former presenters, and they're on there. And Eric, of course, hosted a show, I think 2 shows, on the station around the mid-2000s, thereabout, right? We're going to chat to Shahida Omar from the Teddy Bear Foundation coming up just now, and we'll also pick up an issue around the built environment, around some of the issues around Red Verulam, Doornkop, Sea Point, and Omonde, around, where construction has fallen foul. All of that's coming up later on. Eric, before I get to Dr. Shahida Omar, I just want to finish the story of Zuma. So we've got 2 minutes to talk about it very quickly, right? Are you saying, and I've heard all the things you've said, but has he done nothing wrong?
Let me go back to what I said earlier. We have institutions that determine wrongdoing in this country. I have yet to hear of any institution that has pronounced a wrongdoing on our ex-president. So from that perspective, he hasn't.
Okay.
Has he succeeded in everything that he needed to do? No, he didn't. And partly because the media in this country is very adept at making sure you hate the people who are best for you, especially if you're not white. We don't own any of the media here. Right down, sometimes I doubt if the SABC is even run by this government. So you get fed lies for so long and so intensely that your brain stops functioning. As far as I know, ex-President Zuma has not been convicted of any wrongdoing. So he hasn't done any wrong.
Okay, so let's just pause on that because we've got a minute. So if he's not convicted of any wrongdoing, let's just pause there. That does not necessarily mean that he's run the country perfectly when he ran it. In the same way, there can be a binary between Ramaphosa. There's aspects that he could do very well and others very poorly.
Well, it's impossible to run anything perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not a standard.
What has been his shortcomings, Zuma?
Well, I think for me, his shortcomings came mainly out of the constraints of what we agreed during CODESA, okay? We should not have agreed to a two-term democracy. We shouldn't have agreed to it, especially because we're trying to fix over 350 years of oppression. We should not have agreed that somebody can only 10 years. We should have said, if you are doing well, you'll go on as long as possible, just like they did in Russia, just like they did in China, and it's in longevity that you can fix things. So while you are busy doing that, you get tons of hostile white media, by and large, letting your people hate you and what you are doing, turn the tide around, switch it around, put in somebody else who works for you. They've been doing this across all democracies all over the West, and we are the most Western of all African countries. And none of our presidents, they'll get killed here.
Right. We'll
if
talk
they
about
do the right thing.
There's many other things you want to talk about, including, I know that, migration, including Israel, Palestine, and a whole lot more. But we'll get to that later on. Next up, let's talk to Shaida Omar.
Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAfm 90 years.
My name is Simpiwe Ndidi, leadership speaker and coach, and founder of Shomani Leadership Awakening. I just want to say congratulations to SAfm on celebrating 90 years of excellence. It has been a great privilege for me.
Hi, my name is Paul Nzimande. I'm a life and leadership coach, an author, and a mental wellness advocate. As a regular contributor on SAfm, I love the platform because it enables us to empower individuals, to empower organizations, to empower whole communities. As if SAfm turns 90, we say, indeed, unwele olude.
90 years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans speaking to South Africa. Ashraf Garda on SAfm.
Right, we're going to chat. In fact, I'll take some of your comments just now via WhatsApp voice note. But in the meantime, yesterday we used the word bizarre. This is another story that's bizarre, but something completely different. The Malmesbury teenager arrested in an FBI-tipped raid for ordering American children to sexually abuse themselves and then to mutilate animals struggled so badly at school that a psychometrist recommended that he be excused from writing his third-term exams in 2024. It's an interesting story to look into, complex at most, but what are the big takeouts from all of that? With me, Dr. Shaida Omar, who's a clinical director at the Teddy Bear Foundation. Shaida, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. First, what is your understanding of the story? And perhaps just share a little bit more so that the audience has context.
Okay, so for me, firstly, it's deeply concerning, particularly because networks such as 764 represent a form of exploitation that can move into a child's bedroom through a phone or a computer. So any device, whether it's a tablet, phone, or computer. And from a child protection perspective, the important message here is that the danger is not simply the content children may encounter online. It is a deliberate manipulation of children by individuals who understand their vulnerabilities and use those vulnerabilities against them. And I think this is what we have to be concerned about, is the rise of networks such as 764. What makes these networks particularly dangerous is the combination of grooming, psychological manipulation, the sexual exploitation, threats, blackmail, and humiliation. Okay. And often children are not even in a position to know who they're talking to. They don't know. And only later on can they stumble onto the facts that it's actually another person impersonating. So, and when a child is shared an image or video, they can lose control over where that material goes. I think this Malmesbury case is a reminder that young people themselves can become both victims and, in certain circumstances, participants in harmful online networks, as we've just seen.
Okay, now, the point is, if I spoke to you 5 years ago, you probably would say something similar, and maybe 10 years ago also, meaning that this rise appears to be continuing unabated. What should the societal pushback to this be?
Well, firstly, I think we are just, what we should actually look at is why are children particularly vulnerable, Ashraf? Because if you look at the target group here, the target population group, we know that we're dealing a lot with, and in this case, in Malmesbury as well, it's an adolescent, a 16-year-old, and they are, obviously at a phase or stage in their life of volatility, vulnerability, emotionally and socially. And the reality is that teenagers are always seeking acceptance, belonging, attention, validation, and independence. And online predators can exploit precisely these kind of needs. They begin by offering friendship, affection, or admiration. And I know you're asking me, what can we do as a society? So I think we need to start off with, firstly, looking at the warning signs for parents, because who are the ones that are going to notice or expect to notice their children's behavior? It's parents.
Parents need to be more interventionist. Would I be right in saying that?
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. Certainly parents need to look out, be more vigilant, and pay attention to changes in behavior, particularly when there's several behaviors occurring together. You can't just take one isolated behavior and say, oh, there's something wrong here, something drastic or bizarre. I think we need to move beyond that they have to take a few behaviors into consideration.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Eric.
And so parents also... but I just think parents protect children without shutting down communication, because often the most powerful protection is an open relationship in which a child knows that they can come to you without immediately being punished or humiliated. The parents' platform is a platform of protection.
Okay, Shaida, I've got Eric Miyeni, who's co-hosting for the day, so this is his voice next.
A quick question. Would it be too simplistic to say you should give your children what they go and look for outside? Meaning, if they don't have enough love in the household, if they don't get the validation in the household, they're easier to manipulate, which would be an earlier step to having to prevent it from happening. Would that be too simplistic?
I completely agree. I think children are needy, they are vulnerable, and often children resorting to these kind of behaviors are seeking out a need for acceptance, validation, recognition, and this is something that we have to consider. So I completely support you, Eric, in your statement.
Shaida, just to end up then, right? At the moment we're talking about the 16-year-old, this obviously unnamed child, really, who's the perpetrator, but in fact is also a victim. And I understand there's and that's what the psychometrist tests talk about, right? Tell me about that. I mean, on one hand, the perpetrator, but how it affects that person as well.
So, in studies and in our clinical experiences, what we have found that often children who are displaying harmful sexual behavior, problematic sexual behavior, often are coming from backgrounds of adversity. So whether it's a history of victimization, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, exposure to child sexual abuse material, and coming from dysfunctional family, substance abuse. So there are numerous risk factors that contribute to this behavior. So you are absolutely correct. That victimizer probably is a victim himself or herself. And that is the context we need to understand this from. We can't, it's not about blaming and shaming the child. We have to preserve the relevant evidence and actually explore the context and look at the risk factors and the protective factors, and look also at pattern, duration, frequency, and severity in order to look at what would be the appropriate intervention, because there might be low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Your low risk and medium risk offenders or initiators of this kind of behavior would be conducive and receptive to interventions. High risk would have to be within a secure care facility.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you've left us with so many things to consider, and I'm going to suggest that families go home tonight and reflect on it and in conversation with their own, spouses and their children. Lots to consider. Dr. Shaida Omar from the Teddy Bear Foundation, much appreciate you engaging us here on the National Pulse. We'll get to some voice notes before Eric takes over for the next conversation.
Hey, we buy cars. How does it work if I want to sell my car?
We'll drive to your place. You can visit our pod. Even if you don't have space, then at the mall in a parking lot, we've got lots of depots all across the land. Contact We Buy Cars. You're in safe hands. Safe hands.
Wow, that's great.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Some Sundays are made for unforgettable stories. This week, witness courage, sacrifice, and a love that refuses to surrender. As history's most devastating volcanic eruption changes lives forever in Pompeii. Experience the spectacle. Sunday blockbuster movies at 7 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Running a truck fleet business in this economy is tough. Fuel, maintenance, staff, the costs never stop. That's why I switched to My Way Business Insurance. Now I save up to 20% on my insurance premiums every month. These savings go a long way to keeping my fleet on the move.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your trucks and buses. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 for a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
Mr. Urban, I'm almost certain.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Emmanuel in Teben. And I also greet your guest on the studio. Yeah, I understand your guest well if he says he is a fan of Jacob Zuma. I think your guest up there, he must be the tenderpreneur, because all those people who were benefiting tenders from Zuma's administration, yes, they do love him, even though he is no longer on power. Thank you.
Oh, finally, pro-Zuma and Matese, an impartial view around the figure Zuma has been allowed into mainstream media. Siyabonga lo mdala. Otherwise, yeah. Hey, we've been living in an Orwellian society ever since the character assassination of Ubabu Zuma. Anonymous Mbombela.
Ashraf. So, he's correct. The gentleman is correct. We can say Zuma is corrupt because we are sitting from afar and looking at. But yet, the same thing when we say that Ramaphosa is corrupt, you guys are quick to say, no, Ramaphosa is not corrupt. Ramaphosa is a good man. Yeah, he must have his day in court. Let Zuma have his day in court as well. Because the court can only pronounce if somebody is corrupt. Finish and clear. So, I'm not saying he's not corrupt. I'm just saying the gentleman is correct. Zuma is not corrupt until the court says so. Or else also Ramaphosa is corrupt if we can say Zuma is corrupt.
Okay, lots to reflect on all of that. We don't have much time.
Quickly.
Yeah, quick one.
As a matter of fact, I've never won a single tender in my entire 60 years of living. Not one.
Okay, now we know. By the way, some are making reference to Zuma walking out of the Zondo Commission. Another conversation. The complexities of our history are there for the taking. Let's talk. You want to pick up on the issue of public works and investigations around how buildings are built.
Yeah, it turns out the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has released findings of 4 investigations conducted by the Council for the Built Environment that looked into the causes behind the collapse of buildings in Red Verulan, Doornkop, Sea Point, and Omondi. It's quite a number of places. And to talk to us about this is Dr. Msizi Mieza, who is the CEO of the Council for the Built Environment. Just to kick off, Dr. Mieza, which buildings were investigated exactly, and how many fatalities were there?
Do we have the guest on the line? We should, Dr. Msizi. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Eric's going to talk to you directly. Go ahead. Yeah.
Did you hear my question, Dr. Miaza?
Yes, I did.
Okay, please go ahead and answer.
Sorry, are we starting the interview already?
Yes.
Okay, please start again because
we started by asking which collapsed buildings were investigated and how many fatalities were there in total.
No, okay. The total fatalities were 17, and the buildings that we investigated was the Redcliffe River Ranch Temple in Verulam. In that incident, 5 people died. And the Doronkop House in Soweto, 3 people died. And the Omonde building in Johannesburg in Soweto, 9 people died. And the Magnolia development, social development, no one actually lost their life there.
Did the investigation reveal who built each of those collapsed buildings?
I think when you say who built, I think there are different role players in the construction.
Who were the construction companies that built all of those buildings? Did you find...
The River Ranch, it was a group, it was like an NGO that's basically a church that provides social relief in that particular area in the city of Ekurhuleni. Doronkop was an old house that was built on a diplomatic land. Magnolia is a big development in Cape Town, which is built by, I'm trying to remember the developers off by head, and Omonde, the developer, where I think we can try and remember the name, but it's a big developer in the Joburg South as well.
Are they being are criminal charges being laid against these developers?
Obviously, because people lost their lives, the matters are also being handled by the police. So there is an inquest that has been opened. But obviously that process is handled by the SAPS. Ours is to look at the culpabilities from a professional and compliance point of view.
What are the common building safety weaknesses that the investigation has highlighted?
Look, in the main, what we've established relates to just basic disregard of the construction laws, be it by developers and owners of these particular developments. Secondly, is the inability for regulators, be it municipalities, to enforce the laws and inspectorate capacity within local government. And thirdly, relates to the capacity and competence of professionals, because we do find in some instances that there was some misrepresentation where professionals or practitioners will claim to hold a particular registration credential from the registration bodies, whereas we discover that they are actually not registered with the bodies, and they then perform work. And in some instances, there is just no involvement of professionals altogether. So it's just communities basically navigating these complex processes of the construction industry.
Obviously, it's a positive thing that the actual construction companies are being held accountable, and criminally so. What happens to the municipalities? What are the consequences for municipalities that don't, exercise their oversight properly?
Obviously, as another sphere of government, we are a public entity, and matters that requires intergovernmental relations, they sit within the HR Framework Act. Hence, in our findings, we've worked with all the 3 municipalities because we've got a common interest of ensuring that there is safety in the construction industry. So we will be actually engaging with the municipalities of Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and Cape Town to share and compare notes, and in the main also present the findings that the investigation is revealed and some of the issues that we are putting forward, which they can consider, amongst others, in the areas of Doronkop, for example, which is known for dolomite. We might have to consider different mechanism on how you deal with dolomitic land
And I think it's not a specialized program that much, because in Centurion, you know that the land is under democratic, and there are solutions that are being employed by different developers. In the city of Ethekwini and as well as Johannesburg, there are specific recommendations that obviously they will have to consider around some of the bylaws that might be put forward, which we will be presenting to the municipalities, and then through their internal governance processes, they will consider what makes sense, and also augment what we're putting forward, because obviously we don't claim monopoly over these issues, but we'll work in the spirit of cooperative governance and support one another.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miyaza, for joining us. We hope in the future we'll be able to prevent this before it happens.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
Eric, you mentioned that you remember Greg House from before.
Yes.
So you can introduce him because he's doing the news headlines now.
Thank you, Dr. Miyaza. And news headlines with... He used to be my favorite guy on the station.
Goodness.
Absolutely. I love Greg Host and I love his voice. Greg, you still here? Give us the news, big guy.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know how I'm going to beat that with the headlines, but we'll try. In the headlines, the ANC says it'll tomorrow lay criminal charges against DA MP Mark Burke and the fintech company he founded. Third suspect's been arrested in connection with the murders of 2 women and 2 police officers in Reicher Park, east of Johannesburg, earlier this month. And authorities in northern India have transferred nearly 100 murder cases from a judge after he handed out 22 death sentences. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Our top story down at KZN remains the closure of the M3 south from Hilton into Pietermaritzburg for recovery now of today's tanker fire and tanker explosion. Massive queue of trucks and vehicles stuck from Howick coming all the way down through Hilton. Motorists being taken off at Sadara, Summit Hilton. There's a lot of pressure on those sort of alternative routes as well. But if you're trying to get through to Durban, it is going to be the long haul. M3 closed from Hilton down to Town Hill. Just staying in KZN, a crash on the M4 south around Virginia Airport. Looks like it's being cleared. There is a bit of sluggishness of the traffic there. And the N2 North up through Spaghetti Junction, looking slow to Westwood Mall. Crash on the M1 North through Midrand at Allendale. That queue starts around Sandton. A couple of breakdowns between Buccleuch and Rivonia, so heading to Fourway is quite busy. And a smash on the Mike 1 South at Boysons. That's pushing a queue back as far as Parktown today. Cape Town fairly heavy on the M1 out of town from Sable Road, Century City out towards Brackenfell Boulevard. N7 North queuing heavily today, passing to noon up to the single lane roadwork sections. And if you're driving into Mitchell's Plain, M7 to the R300 and the R300 from the M2 down to Stock Road, both options busy. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Rob, right. Now, by the way, as we talk about other things, we're going to, let me remind you, Eric Miyeni is still with us. He'll be with us till 6 o'clock. We'll take lots more calls, and there's a lot to consider from him, and his promise is going to give his thoughts on those issues, right? All of that to come up as well. Right. In the meantime, we're going to have sport right up after this.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
This is SAfm Sports with Duming Khapele.
To me, you've got news about, the box, but specifically the captain, right?
Yes, Springbok captain Siya Kolisi will miss the opening test of rugby's greatest rivalry, with Peter Steph du Toit leading in his absence. Inexperienced loose forward Paul de Villiers, who only made his test debut in July, is Kolisi's replacement. The back row is completed by Jasper Visser, and coach Rassie Erasmus has cited form and a cautious approach to the 2-time World Cup winning skipper's return. And here's Rassie on de Villiers.
We're very happy for him. I think if you're one of the fittest players on the team and you were really a standout player for Stormers, and you're not in one area average, you're above average in all the different things, and then you've got 1 or 2 things that is world class. Sometimes people look at some players and they've got one thing that they do great, but they're below average in other things, and you just can't cover for those guys who can only do one thing really probably the best in the world, but then he's average to below average in other areas. Paul is the kind of player that is above average in most areas of coaching or playing, and then there's 3 or 4 areas where he's world class. So I think he deserves it, or he'll be nervous playing this first test match against these big names. But I'm sure the players around him will keep him calm, and himself is a very good leader, so very happy for him.
In football, Banyana have been drawn alongside Chinese Taipei, Ecuador and Uzbekistan in the preliminary phase of the Intercontinental Women's World Cup playoffs. Banyana will need to finish first or second in the preliminary phase in order to advance to the final phase. Games will be played from the 24th of November to the 5th of December. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns defender Khuliso Modao will be on the sidelines for the next 6 months after suffering a serious Achilles injury during the club's 2-0 victory over Marumo Gallants yesterday. Cardoso says that the injury was particularly unfortunate because it occurred without any challenge from an opposing player. Modao is set to go for surgery on Monday. Elsewhere, a worldwide group of football supporters have launched a petition calling for FIFA President Gianni Infantino to resign and for a major change to be made at FIFA. The petition, launched on change.org, has support from football fan organizations across Africa, Europe, North America and other parts of the world, including England's Football Supporters Association. The campaign is calling for greater transparency at FIFA, more consultation with the supporters, stronger checks on the power of FIFA executives, and also more money to be invested back in football. In motorsport, 4-time world champion Max Verstappen has signed a new contract at Red Bull until the end of 2030. The move should end speculation about the Dutchman's future at the end of the season after he had been linked with potential moves to Mercedes or McLaren. Verstappen was previously contracted to the end of 2028, but there were clauses in his contract that would have allowed him to leave at the end of the current Formula One season had he wanted. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
Thanks for that, Chimi. Yes, all eyes on that Springboks and the weekend itself. The market's next.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
There's been no electricity for a week because my neighbors overloaded the transformer with their illegal connection. My daughter can't study at night because my neighbor blew our transformer by bridging his meter. My neighbors have been buying electricity from illegal vendors and using it carelessly. We live amongst them and allow them to vandalize vital electricity infrastructure. We need to stop that. Report illegal connections to Eskom on 0800 112722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
Some Sundays are made for unforgettable stories. This week, witness courage, sacrifice, and a love that refuses to surrender. As history's most devastating volcanic eruption changes lives forever in Pompeii. Experience the spectacle. Sunday blockbuster movies at 7 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Mavis, I wonder if I should sell my car. I'm not sure where to go.
Wanna sell your car, but don't know what to do. You don't have to go far, we come to you. If you're rolling on a 1.5 or a Lacquer 2.2, doesn't matter what you drive, we buy cars once you.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Economic news on SAfm. Facts and figures you can count on.
So, Jimmy Miyeni, you're hosting the SAfm Market Update at 6, but set the agenda for us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Today we've got a special conversation that I will get to in a moment. We're going to be taking a look at results out of the Spur Group and Exxaro. In the case of Exxaro, it's interim results for the 6 months ended June 2026. In the case of Spur, that was their full year's numbers. We're going to speak to the chief executive officers of both businesses and get a sense of how each business is fared. We've also got a conversation with the Standard Bank Group, taking a look at 100th branch, or the 100 branch threshold rather, that they've crossed with their partnership with the Department of Home Affairs. We're going to speak to them and get a sense of how that Smart ID rollout has been working out for them. We've also got an SME of the Week conversation, as we do every Thursday, getting to know a small business a little bit better. But the big conversation that I mentioned that we would be having is we're going to be chatting to the new incoming chairperson of the Financial and Fiscal Commission of South Africa. This is a commission that has been appointed in terms of Section 221 of the Constitution by the President, and the chairperson of that particular commission is none other than former Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene. We're going to speak to him and get a sense of what this commission's role or responsibilities could potentially look like, especially as we head towards more financial conversations with the midterm budget policy statement set to take place in October. We're going to get a sense of this Financial and Fiscal Commission's objectives, and perhaps what it is that the President expects of this commission, if we can. So that's what's coming up on the show today. Before we get to those conversations, a sense of some of the market movements throughout the day. It's been a largely quiet day, with the exception of the crypto side of it. That's been moving quite a bit. A lot of market participants caught on the wrong side of some trades. Crypto short sellers taken out of the market. It seems the Bitcoin price rallying by more than 10%, effectively in rand terms, with that slightly firmer rand. It's about 100,000 rands worth of Bitcoin value that has just popped up overnight on the Bitcoin price in rand terms. It's back at $72,200 of a coin, or around 1,165,000 odd rands per Bitcoin. So the big move on that side coming through from the crypto side of it. But the rand still 16.13 against the dollar, still just below 22 rand against the British pound at 21 rand 99, €1 18 rand 83. Commodity prices having a relatively good day as well. The gold price back above $4,500 a fine ounce. Platinum back above 1,800. Palladium hasn't yet broken above 1,400, but platinum is dangerously close to its all-time highs of $1,850 a fine ounce there. The oil price not doing much better there. We're above $90 a barrel. We don't want to be here, but I saw earlier we were just north of $93 a barrel. At the moment, we're at $92.20 a barrel. So that's not boding well from that perspective, but it does mean resource stocks off the back of those commodity prices had a really good day. They were up 1.5% on the day's trade. Financials, the complete opposite, 1.4% in the red. Industrials, 1.2% in the red. The all share, 1/3% down. The top 40, almost 1/3% down. US markets, the Nasdaq, 0.75% down. The S&P, 1/3% down. European markets, a sea of red there as well. The CAC 40, the biggest loser there, down 0.5%. I've got Nicholas Kunze of Sanlam Private Wealth joining me on markets a little later on. I want to get his thoughts around all of these movements and what's been driving some of the market conversations. Of course, yesterday we had those late announcements by the FOMC out of the US and by President Trump. So we're going to reflect on that and perhaps see how those factors might have influenced some of the market movements. But of course, again, those conversations after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Jimmy. Enjoy your show, and then an hour of sport follows, the markets from 6 to 7, and sport 7 to 8. Eric Miyeni, you're still with us until 6.
SAfm is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAfm Radio.
So, by the way, just an update on the conversation we had regarding Eastern Cape Health and medication. Remember Mkonde, right? So the spokesperson for Eastern Cape Health, who sent the original voice note, that's Samangwini Mavovana, she then replied again just now to Keys to say, in fact, they were trying to get hold of Mkonde yesterday quite a few times. They couldn't, but they now connected with him. So at 11 o'clock tomorrow, they will get the treatment to him. So it's a good example of how we can, as SAfm and this show, the National Pulse, we can effect change just by using the power of our airwaves. So I think is absolutely great. Eric Miyeni is always at the power of airwaves when he's on air and even when he's off air. He's been co-hosting with me. How have you been finding it so far?
Very nice. Like I said to you, I'm very comfortable behind the radio mic, man. I enjoyed it a lot. So, yeah, thank you, SAfm, for giving me a taste of this one more time. So it's been a lot of fun.
And listen, I welcome and invite you, the audience, if you want to call in and, reminisce, be nostalgic, let's do nostalgia. If you remember Eric from those years. Otherwise, you can pick up some of the big issues that you want to raise now. Now, amongst the big issues, okay, Forget Zuma Ramaphosa. That's done now. It requires a 1-hour conversation.
Absolutely.
I'm very interested in what's been playing out regarding South Africa's immigrants. And I think you sort of alluded to it in the conversation. What do you feel? What's happening? What's your take?
Well, for those who are thoroughly invested in our borders, I want you to know that Europeans travel freely right across the continent of Europe. Once you have a Schengen visa, as long as you're in the Schengen countries, you move freely. Why are we stuck behind borders? Because if we become 1.2 billion people working together and using, we can move into each other's territories easily, we're going to be rich. We're going to be trading with each other. We're the least connected continent in the world right now. No, not enough. We should have a Cape to Cairo highway. We should have no borders here because none of the borders were set by us to begin with. They were done, some white men set together some years back.
The Berlin Treaty.
And then they set these borders.
Conference,
and also, let's all remember as South Africans that when we were fighting apartheid, we didn't care about borders. We went wherever we could go in order to be helped to fight here. And now we sit here, yet another distraction. There is nobody with any spaza shop who is taking money from you or your children. Look at the same families that have been taking money under apartheid, under colonialism, and they've been doing so now under the ANC. That's who your enemy is. It's not some Zimbabwean guy or some Nigerian guy who's in South Africa today. These are your friends. These are your people. We went to them when we needed to. So for me, it's a joke, this thing.
So let's look at it practically. I mean, I hear all that you're saying, and you're right about Europe, that it is so connected. You can land in Paris and then go to Germany and Italy, and you don't cross any borders. You just carry on, right? The South African example may be, as people have expressed, to say we have a massive unemployment problem, and we have to limit foreign nationals.
No,
otherwise we will not have jobs for our own. Is that not a compelling reason?
No, it's not a compelling reason at all. I mean, there is no way that, what other example can I use? If your problems with unemployment, your problems with all of these things have very little to do with the very few people who form a very small minority of your population in this country today. Your problem is because apartheid has not left this country. Your problem is that economic oppression is still top of everything in this country. Now, while you are busy fighting a guy with a spaza shop who's making your money travel longer because he charges you less on bread, less on sugar, less on everything that you need than Spar, Checkers, and all of them. He's saving you money from where you get. That's not the guy who's oppressing you economically. That's not the guy who's taking away your jobs. The people who are running your ANC right now are your true enemies. Whoever's got all the money in this country is who you should be dealing with.
All right. What do you then make of March and March? And what do you make of March and AfriForum?
And it has just come up that they're being paid by some Zionist guy.
But have you got the proof? I mean, I've heard
no, it was in their own newspapers.
No, but where did
I saw it? I read it somewhere.
No, I'm just wanting to be clear because it's an important statement. There's been rumors about it. Do we know that as a fact?
I don't know, but that's what's out there right now. But obviously, in this country, anything that taints anything white or Zionist or whatever it is a rumor. Where was it proved? Every one of them. But any rumor that happens on a black is a fact all the time. The point that there's a rumor, I'm not going to say it's for sure or not. I didn't give a name. But I did say there is a rumor that this thing isn't paid for. Now, you ask me, where does that woman get the money to bus all these people, to organize all of this stuff? Where does he get the money? Because I don't know of any GoFundMe. And she's not a rich person. So who's funding her? And if she's being funded, in what way is it good for you? And forget whether she's funded or not being funded. The people she's attacking are not your problem.
Okay. I want to ask about AfriForum as well as March and March. We'll do that after this.
Every nation leaves something behind. A song, a poem, a painting, a performance, a story. This is ours. Join us as we honor the creators shaping South Africa's future at the National Arts and Culture Awards 2026. Friday, 21 August, Sun City. Then watch the primetime broadcast on SABC 1, Saturday, 22 August at 8 p.m. NACA 2026. Celebrating our nation's creative excellence.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAfm Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Cape Verde gained independence in 1975. A small nation that built stability through resilience and connection. Tourism, services, and remittances power the economy, one of West Africa's strongest democracies. But challenges remain: drought, limited natural resources, and economic dependence on imports. Still, Cape Verde continues to shine through creativity.
It was not a racial war at all. It was the black students against the system.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, before we get back to Eric, and I'm going to pick his brain on other things too, you can WhatsApp too. Remember this: deciding to ignore your alarm may cost you complimentary hotel breakfast, but deciding to stay with your current car insurance, well, it could be costing you thousands of rands in savings a year. With our insurance, 48-year-old Adam saves an unbelievable 1,803 rands a month on his 2020 Audi Q3. So switch to our insurance. You too could be one quote away from having more money in your pocket every month. SMS out to 30754. That's out 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information available online.
Call SAfm now on 086 000 2032.
Right, we've got some calls we want to take. In fact, first we got Mvuzi Wekaya. Mvuzi, how's it, man, from East London?
Thanks, how are you doing?
Yeah, good indeed. Right, go for it. What's your point?
Eric, welcome back, even if it's for a few hours. It's good to
2 hours to be exact.
And thank you for your service, man, over the years. Whether it's a book on SAfm or doing your brilliant acting, we really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Go ahead. Mvuzi, I think he got cut off. I'm not too sure. Okay, he was going to say something. I don't know. Michael in Quebec. Hi, Michael.
I just want to say to Eric that, if we had more of Eric, I think we will have a balanced view of issues. He speaks truth to power, and it's very interesting to have a person like that, because normally with media people, they all toe the line, if I can put it that way. So, speak truth to power. I like that.
Okay, got that. In fact, there's a tweet from Zaki Matebula saying, "Your guest is talking nonsense. South Africa cannot be a country where we will practice freedom of entering without documents. He's talking on the side of being privileged." You want to comment on that?
Look, nobody is saying anything about there not being, people must come without, nobody's saying laws must be broken here. But I'm telling you, very simply, that this is not your problem. This is not your main problem in this country. And it shouldn't concern you, because your government should be sorting that out. Okay. You should be eating. Your children should be getting educated. You should be having a job. There should not be a single poor person in a country as rich as ours. We have the highest amount of manganese in the world. We have one of the highest amounts of gold in the world. We have the highest amount of platinum in the world. We have the highest number of coal in the world. We are one of the richest countries in the world. And yet you are starving. And you think you should be taking over the government's job of dealing with foreigners when you're starving. It's rubbish. Okay. You shouldn't be doing that. We have bigger issues here.
Right, I'm pushing because of time. Quick one-liner. AfriForum March in March meeting yesterday. Your thoughts?
Yeah, two rubbish organizations getting together.
Okay, got that. Let's get to some of the WhatsApp comments. I want to get your final thoughts after that.
Hi. Good afternoon, Ashraf, and your guest, Eric Miyeni. No, my name is Nikki. I don't know which world this guy, Eric, is living, because if he's busy promoting that Zuma was people under Zuma, they were very rich. But he's forgetting one thing, that friends of Zuma, they were rich. So it's amazing to hear such an intelligent person talking like this, because maybe was also rich by then, I don't know. But really, we've seen what we've seen. Thank you.
Quick question. Oh, is that a voice note?
No. Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Let me help you here. Say, this guy who says Zuma is not corrupt, no court has found him guilty. It's simply because he hasn't go to trial. He's avoiding it by all means. He just doesn't want to go. If he's going to say that prosecutor is biased, the judge is like corrupt, always he's got excuses. He always keeps dragging on and on the process just to avoid his day in court. So you must not say he's not corrupt. He's talking absolutely nonsense. Thanks.
You know, Ashraf, I'm a colored person. But to be honest, at least when Zuma was in power, the people were working. Now this Ramaphosa, he made this country, he messed this country up. Zuma, the people were crafting, yeah. You never had this 40%, almost 50% people sitting at home. Queue from Durban.
Okay, there's no time to comment on that, excepting, to be fair, it's not like in Zuma's time everybody was working, and there's a momentum that comes in place for years, and it gathers even more momentum. Listen, we got about 3 minutes. I want to just pick out from you. You have views, because you mentioned it off air, about South Africa and the ICJ, right?
No, I just think it's kind of ironic that you don't hear anything substantive around the genocide in Palestine and the apartheid state of Israel. Meanwhile, we are the country that took it to the ICC, and yet it's quiet here. It's almost as though if you try and say something like that, there's something wrong with you. Why? How can we take a country to the ICC and there's nothing said around it in the media? I don't understand.
No, but we've covered it. But you're saying what? There's been a blanket absence?
Pretty much. I don't see much in the media around it, which is kind of strange to me.
Listen to the show more often. You'll pick it up. What's your take then on Donald Trump?
The last president of America was JFK, and they killed him. Donald Trump doesn't run America, just like Cyril doesn't run this country.
Who runs it? You said the oligarchs.
Yeah, of course. Whoever paid Cyril $400 million to get in power, whoever paid for Trump to get in power, that's who's running your country.
So who paid Zuma to get into power then?
From what I gather, there was no Zuma 7. It was all on the ground stuff. Because that's all public knowledge. There was none of that back then. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, let me tell you what I'm saying. I don't like saying what I'm not saying. I am saying anywhere where you have a president who has been paid for, okay, by a bunch of people, he's not running the country. That's a fact. He's not. And Zuma didn't have that.
Okay. South Africa, we have a local government election. We've got another election coming up in 2029. What's your sense of where we are as a country, and what do we need to do next?
We've gone backwards. People are suffering in this country. And the ANC, I don't know if it can ever be rehabilitated. Because it seems like everybody in that organization is compromised, and they've forgotten what they got in there for. It's like, the first day you wear a 2000 silk shirt, you can't go back to a rough cotton shirt. These people are corrupted. And they were corrupted by the people they want to be. They want to be these oligarchs. They think they can be Oppenheimers. They think they can be Ruperts. They think they can be these people. And so they are just working to make them make everything.
Quick one, we got 30 seconds. So assuming then the polls suggest the ANC is losing ground, not out of it, but assuming some other power base replaces it, what would be the right power base that replaces the ANC?
At the moment, for me, the strongest is Umkhonto. What are they called?
MK Party.
The MK Party for me.
They have a new boss every week, man.
No, that's what your media tells you.
No?
And as far as I'm concerned, every time I read in the media that there's something horrible about any black organization, I know that's my organization. Because they'll never say anything positive. Every time they say anything positive about a black guy, I'm suspicious.
All right, there we are. Listen, our time's up. And there's nothing suspicious about that. I'll get you in another time.
Thanks for having me in. I thought I was co-hosting, but it turned out to be about what I think, which was a lot of fun.
I think we picked your brain a lot more, which is really great.
Which was lovely. Yeah.
Eric Miyeni, time for the news now at 6.
ANC to lay criminal charges against DA MP and another arrest over Recha Park shootings. Good evening. The ANC says it will tomorrow lay criminal charges against DA MP Mark Burke and the fintech company he founded, Costello. This after allegations were raised by the Reserve Bank regarding transactions to the value of R4 billion.